The board may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. Do we have any public comment at this time? If not, we'll move on. Consent agenda, consideration of approving the August 31st, 2017 meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from last time? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, let's move on to the regular agenda. Presentation of the monthly financial report and event calendar.
Morning, board. How are y'all?
Good morning.
I guess in your packet, you probably have the September 30th fund balance.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That, of course, is the end of fiscal year 17. We started fiscal year 18, October 1st. A couple of items, I know we've got a lot on the agenda today. If you'll notice, compared to August, our fund balance is up about $200,000 at $747,000. Now that is strictly Civic events because the hot money has been moved over back in August to a fund of its own, and Jaime Guerrero is here from accounting. He's going to speak to that a little bit and give you a little information about the new hot fund. One thing I wanted to impress, and then I'll sit down, is of that $747,000, and every month, whatever that balance is, we have to maintain $425,000 roughly as a 90-day emergency fund. So when you look at that, you have to deduct $425,000, and that's what we have available that we could ask to use for anything that may come up for emergencies or whatever is necessary in a facility repair or maintenance. But we're supposed to maintain a 90-day rainy day fund, and what that is that if we don't receive one penny for 90 days of revenue, that will be enough money to pay the salaries, keep the lights on, pay all the expenses to keep the facilities open. Okay. And we can discuss that further in the future meetings, because I know we've got the policies and so
Yes,
forth
sir.
today. And Jaime's here, and they just moved back to the city hall, so we'll let him speak, and then that way he can go on about his business.
All right, thank you,
Okay?
Don.
If y'all have any questions, y'all have my number, so you can always call me.
Can I ask one now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, last month it was reported that we were exceeding the revenue budgets for everything but the convention center. But with this being the year end, it doesn't look like we exceeded for River Stage or the farmer's market. Did that change that much during the month?
We did what now for the farmer's market?
Last month, it was reported that we exceeded the revenue budgets for all the different facilities except for the convention center.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't look like we did for River Stage or farmer's market. So did that change that much in a month?
That I do not know. I'll be glad to look into it for you. We just got this Blue Book page yesterday, and I have not really gone through all of it line by line.
Okay.
I'll be glad to check on it for you and call you.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Good morning. I'm Jaime Guerrero, Assistant Director of Finance, and like I said, and Don wanted me to come up and just kind of explain why we broke out hot funds into a separate fund. Traditionally, we'd kept all hot money in Fund 410, which is civic events. But as we discussed the uses and purpose of the hot fund tax, we felt for greater transparency, we would break out the actual revenue versus 410 operational stuff to kind of give a better picture of the independent venues and how they operate and obviously how their fiscal nature worked. So let me pull up. Excuse me. So in August, we went ahead and created a new fund, obviously labeled 605 for hot specific, just to show each individual transfer independent of the 410 Civic Events Fund. I think that's all I have. Do you have any questions related to that
Yes, sir.
matter? Certainly.
All right, Jaime, so from now on, are we going to be getting both reports? And is the Civic Events Advisory Board still going to be the overseer of the entire hot fund?
I believe so. I don't think anything has changed as far as the makeup or the oversight of the board. We just simply separated the tax revenue, the hotel tax revenue to its own fund, just to separate it out specifically from civic event. So Don has been requesting both funds for his board packet, so we anticipate that'll continue.
Okay, so anytime that we're going to make an expenditure off of hot taxes, I presume that it's going to come before the board, is that correct?
If that's what history has shown outside when it was part of 410, then I would anticipate nothing changed. Nothing to change. It's just a simple movement of the funds into its own separate account. I don't think any of the operational procedures has changed. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for the most part. I just, I keep hearing things that sometimes things will go straight to council and bypass the Civic Advisory Board. I just want to make sure that if we ever do want to make any large expenditures that come out of the hot fund, that it will continue coming to the Civic Events Advisory Board so that they're aware of it. I mean, I know that emergencies come out and things like that, but it's just important, I think, for the board to know what's going on with the fund.
And I would think that's why the council created this board, or for that type of advice. And although
There's been quite a few expenditures from hot funds that haven't come through civic events.
It's true.
Yeah.
There have been.
And so obviously city council has that authority over all our funds. So I can't speak to the history of those expenditures, but this board is meant to help advise both recreation and city council on use of those funds.
And I agree, city council has the final say. That's without dispute. But if expenditures are going to be coming, you would think that whoever's making the expenditure would give the advisory board common courtesy and come and present why they're doing it, instead of us just seeing it at a meeting and trying to figure out what's going on. It creates confusion for us.
I can understand that, but again, just the distribution of the funds it really has no effect on either the policy or the process that have happened prior or still in place. So just a simple separation, so you could see them independent of each other.
All right, yeah. If you just pass that on, that we're concerned about that particular item.
I have a question before you
I can do
close
that.
that.
Yes, ma'am.
On the 605, so on the expenditures to the Chamber of Commerce, which is CVB, it shows that the year-to-date total should have been $693, but there's a $42,000 shortfall. Why would that be? Shouldn't they have gotten their full budget at this point?
They did, and what you don't see here is the detail throughout the month. They did receive their monthly contributions. What you don't see is, I want to say sometime in the middle of the year, we had a clawback from prior year funds that they did not use, and so it goes back into the fund, and so that's why you'll see that it looks like a shortfall, but it's just a credit to that account.
Okay, isn't that clawback because their original budget was $865,000?
I'm not sure. I can't speak to that. But we can
Is there a way
certainly
to find that
information.
out?
Certainly, of course.
Because I think their clawback was $129,000, which is the difference between the $865 and the $735 that's on here. So the other 42 is something in addition.
Okay, well, we can certainly look at that and get that information back to you. I don't have that in front of me, but
Will you
that should
send it
be
to
fairly
me?
easy, definitely.
All
I
right.
can I'll send it to staff and copy you as well.
All right.
Any other questions?
Did you want to address something?
But it's only 735 this year that you got?
Well, I see the original budget here on the 410. The original budget was $865,000. It is on this sheet right here.
Correct. So I'm not really sure where this 735 came from. That clawback, we're checking with Beverly at the office. That happened before I came on board. but that was, yeah, I don't think it was 129,000. So we're trying to find out why that number is less than
Well, that,
we see
I would want to
in
know
our
too.
budget. So we're concerned about that as well.
But on
Okay.
the 605 fund, doesn't it still show, am I reading that right? 42,000 short of the 735?
Yeah.
Which is 130,000 short of the original? So they still haven't gotten, after the clawback, they still haven't gotten the 42,000, if that's what the clawback was.
Sure, and that's
I mean-
information we can provide. Again, I don't have the detail in front of me, but that's something that's readily available that we can get together and forward that to you.
If y'all send it to us.
Wow.
I just wanted to make a note. I think this, again, has to be reiterated to staff that there's decisions being made, and we have individuals coming to this board asking questions, and we can't answer because there's decisions being made on the third and fourth floor that, we have no involvement in. So again, I guess that's why we would like to know exactly what this board's role is, if we still are required to govern over all hot funds. I think it's great what you guys did by separating the funds, because it does show perception of what this enterprise fund is doing on its own, that it doesn't have a almost $1.5 million fund balance. So separating that out is great. But again, I would like to know specifically that we still are to govern over all hot funds, or is it just sporadic? Because again, we can't answer questions like this. So again, that's just my 2 cents.
Totally agree.
Yeah, we're in agreement, so.
Certainly, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm certainly not the expert as far as the rules that govern the board, and maybe that's a question for legal or for city clerk. But in preparing for today, I did look at the civic events bylaws and what is on our website as far as the board description, and it certainly reads that the Civic Board's Advisory Board obviously makes recommendations regarding civic events policy to the city council. So I guess if you need any more definitive answer to that, then like I said previously, maybe the city clerk or the legal department is a better avenue, but we can certainly pass that along and see if they can provide you some information to that extent.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Jaime? Thank you, sir.
Certainly, we'll get that information together and forward to you quickly. Thank you.
Donna, do you have anything else on financials, or you're done? Oh, no, he left. Okay. All right, go ahead, Lori.
All right. You have a copy of the November calendar as it was done on the 19th. That's changed a little bit. Right now, we've got 49 bookings as of yesterday. We did not meet last month, October. We had 84. September, you had 71.
Is that Pearl Fest looking to be a decent size event?
Yeah. Actually, yes, the tickets are selling pretty well on that.
Lori, are you over the East Mezzanine now?
Yes,
Just to book it, or does Civic Events set it up, or
we just book it.
is it something we can rent?
Uh-huh.
If you
It
have
has
to-
been online for rental for a while, since
that
it was ready.
Would that budget come to us then?
We have a account that money goes in. We've only, just this year, I've had 1, 2, 3, I've received 3 payments for the rental since the auditorium opened.
So if you do rent it, the income does come to Civic Events?
It goes into a separate account for that, yes.
Does a portion of it stay with civic events, like with the Pecan Pavilion?
The labor, the equipment rental, all of that comes to our account, the 410
I think
account, reimburse expenses.
Pecan Pavilion, don't we get a,
Yeah, we
a
get
fee for
$65
booking it?
for each booking.
As long as you're getting paid for doing it.
Oh, one way or the other, yeah.
Kayla, I think also, we'll probably get there, but we need to add that into the fee schedule when we get to the policy discussion as well. And we kind of asked that question as well, and we thought, if we're renting it out, we should be receiving the funding for it. So that may be a place to address it.
One of the items that fell short last year, of course, was a convention center. Will we get any uptick for conventions for that, for next year, or is it too early?
I have nothing on the calendar yet for that. We just finished one with the Texas Society of Range Management, which they're a repeat. They were here about 6 years ago, and Corey came to us again instead of going back to ASU. So that was the last one we had, but it's been booked for about 3 or 4 years. He just rolled the date over. So.
Any other questions for Lori? So do I hear a motion to approve the monthly financials and event calendar?
I'm not sure about the financials. We didn't get any questions answered. I can't, no.
Yeah,
No, on
Is
financials.
it an option to table that?
on the financials,
Did we get answers?
and the caption's not written such you could take action on it anyhow. It's more of a presentation. But we obviously have a couple of questions that need follow-up.
Anybody want to entertain a motion on how we want to?
Do we
I'm
need a
okay with the
motion?
event calendar.
Well, let's make a motion on the event calendar then. We'll proceed on
Well, it's
that.
just a presentation too, so
Yeah.
it doesn't.
It's
well,
not
let's just
written
move-
such you could take action.
Move on.
Let's move forward then. Update of Civic Events Facility Improvement Projects.
Good morning. We're going to talk about the Coliseum improvements. Do we have it? You're going to. Okay, as you can see, the back doors are complete. I don't know if you've all been out there to take a look at them. They look really nice. We're going to go ahead and paint those the brown color on the outside. That's the only thing that's left. They put the little weather stripping on the bottom the other day, so everything's done there except the painting.
Kick plates necessary on that, Steve, or you think that'll be fine just
They
like
they
that?
do look nice like that, but I think the paint probably that's kind of a general consensus. But
What is that right now? I mean,
it's just the raw metal.
oh,
I think it's a primer, actually.
Primer,
but
comic
it's
spray primer.
that's what I was thinking, okay.
more of a primer.
Okay.
But they do look nice.
If it
They're
was
very
some sort of-
functional. They all have breakaways, and they
Big
close
difference.
very nicely, and anybody's been out there to see them.
A lot better.
Yeah.
Will the paint, will the paint help protect it a little bit?
It will.
Because, I mean, if not, then the paint's just gonna peel and
That's where I was
be
going with
something
that.
that would be ugly down the road, so.
Yeah, and it's like anything else out there. If we don't paint it every other year or so, everything falls apart like that, so. But, yeah, we're constantly doing that. We're looking at having to do the rails inside before rodeo now, so there's some other things that need to be done. But, yeah, it's just a constant upkeep on that, so. Sydney? Okay, and the fire inspection, we had that, the write-up, and one of the write-ups that was the cabling on the fire suppression system. And we've gone through the building and we've taken everything off of the fire suppression system. And so as customers come in, they're probably gonna be a little upset with us because their stuff's been cut loose. We tried to get a hold of everybody, and as we did, some people came in and said, yes, we'll move that to here or whatever, but there was still some stuff. But all of that's been cut out. And as you can see from the picture, we were blocking the circuit breaker boxes with chairs and tables and stuff, and all of that's been moved. We had to take the old hockey retaining wall that we use for hockey and football, and we banded that up on pallets and moved it out. So that gave us enough room, and as you can see, it's pretty clear under there now, so that's a big improvement. One of the things, we also have the exit signs that the fire marshal would like us to. He says anywhere in the building, wherever you're standing, you need to be able to see an exit sign. So I've already done I got a couple quotes on that and everything, so I don't have that information in front of me, but that's gonna need to be done. And then the lights inside, they're supposed to come on, like if we lose electricity, they're supposed to come on automatically, which they're designed to do, except for the fact that if you're in the middle of a show and you've got the switch turned off, that they do not come on. which is not good because that's when you're going to need it. So that's going to be part of it is replacing those lights. We'd like to put LEDs up there where the old fluorescents are because they're all wearing out and everything. So we're going to eventually put LEDs up there, and it'll work whenever we lose electricity. There will be a relay there that just turns everything on so that there'll be a walkout light. And that, as far as the fire inspection goes, I think once we get that done, we're going to be right up to where they need us to be. So then the next thing is the chiller, which we've looked at already. And on the picture on the right is the frequency drives. And what they do is they allow the pumps to start up slowly instead of just being try to go all at one time. And so those are bad right now. And as you can see beside it, there's water stains leaking down the wall. And so we're going to replace those as soon as we do the roof, and the roof is going to be repaired next week. And so then we put those in. Chiller number 1 has been out for multiple years. And so that's kind of the bone of contention is we're going to replace that. And we've been instructed to replace that. So what it does is there's 3 of them out there, and they chill the water down, and then the water circulates through the building. The air blows over the water, and it cools inside. And so we've got 2 out of the 3 working, and it's not only just for us, it's for the Spur Arena too. So that's part of it. So Sid's going to explain this costing and everything.
Yeah, leave that up real quick. I've got a question on it. See, if you notice on this slide right here, it talks about the cost. It talks about the first council reading November 7th, second council reading November 21st. That's exactly what I was asking Mr. Guerrero, in the fact that they've already put it on an agenda, and it never came to Civic Events Board. Okay, to me that's a concern.
Actually, I'm the one that put it on the agenda and stuff. They didn't put it on there.
Okay.
So, with that, I had to, of course, I was directed to be able to bring this to the board and you all. Of course, they wanted to try to get this done as soon as possible. The chiller's been out for several years. It was brought to our attention that they wanted to get it done if they could by the time of rodeo. Of course, we probably could not get it done by then. They wanted to be able to still follow the proper steps of getting it to you all, discussing it with you all, but going ahead and having it ready for council for November 7th, November 21st is just us planning it out, making sure that all those steps are taken care of, and then they can go forward with all of the other things that they need to do with the project as well.
So this has been out for a couple of years, but you wanted to rush and get it on.
I didn't know that it was out like that, sir. It's been out for 10 years. That's from what they tell me. If it was out for 10 years, I definitely wasn't around here for 10 years.
So what was the immediate rush? And it's not even going to be done by rodeo.
I can't answer that question for you. I wasn't in that meeting.
It's just real frustrating for stuff to go to city council with our funding. And I mean, that we're supposed to look at and give guidance on. And we don't.
Answer some of that question. Half of this chiller has been working up until like a year ago. And so to keep the other 2 running, that parts have been taken off of this one to keep everything running. The system will work with 2, but if they go down, then you need that backup. And part of the reason was we didn't have the front end system on there, and that's something we just put on there recently. And so manually, we had to go out and switch everything over. And so that with this new system, it comes on automatically. And so if one chiller is not keeping up, then the second one or third one will add to it to make it cool enough that it actually cools the building. Those are pretty big areas.
So it takes 3 chillers to cool the Coliseum?
Usually it'll take 2 if we're running at the same time as the Spur, which happens quite often.
Are you saying that the chillers also cool the Spur Arena?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
So,
is the Spur Arena under ours?
No, but I think in the past we've had some cost sharing that we did with them.
Yes.
and we do have cost sharing with them.
Is there any on this one?
City property, but it's leased to the Stock Show Rodeo Association.
That question that Scott just asked, I'll let Sid handle that. But to answer the question earlier, as far as 2 of them, one of them will cool the Coliseum. One of them will cool the Spur. But when we're running both of them together, a lot of times that second one will need to kick on. But if you lose one of those, now you need that third one as backup. And so really the third chiller is actually backup. And it's not a designated backup or whatever. They just work in sequence whenever it comes on. The one that didn't run last time will run this time, and it just sequences through. So there's not a dedicated one, but you need the third one in case one of those other two go down.
So like for an event like the rodeo, then if you're running the Coliseum and the Spur Arena, you're going to have two chillers
Yeah,
going.
and if depending on the temperature outside, sometimes one will keep up. But if you get during the summer, you have events at both places and you're 106 degrees outside, it does take two to keep them going.
For the last 10 years, that's been fine.
Well, I understand the question, yes. And a lot of that has to do with stuff that was, like Sid said, before our time and all this stuff. And there was a lot of factors in there, so. But half of that one, like say up until about a year ago, we had 2.5 chillers. And that other half would keep up and help with if it needed to be. So it's only been just recently that we don't have use of that full chiller.
You know, there's been a lot of improvements that we've voted on as a board, and we haven't really denied or even fussed about much of it. Why would this be tried to slide this through without us even hearing about it? I mean, the transparency is going out the window.
I agree. Can't answer that. I was not at the meeting. when it
Same
was
thing, we
discussed.
weren't at the meeting. It was above our head.
I'm going to echo that too.
Who asked you to put it on the agenda or take it to city council?
City manager, assistant city manager,
I can't hear you.
assistant city manager.
The city manager?
I mean, if I'm directed to do something, I'm definitely going to take care of it. And from this point on, we're supposed to move forward with it. That's why we're bringing it to the board, bringing it to you all. He said, for sure, we're not rushing the project. They would like to get it done before the rodeo, if it was possible, but it's not an item that they're just holding up for this year and stuff.
And like I say, all we've done is prioritize what needs to be done rather than.
And I agree with you.
where
We
things are
have
going.
other, of course, we have other projects that we would like to get done too as well with our facility projects, with the fire inspection report, things that we need to take care of over there. The Coliseum has many items that you can break down and say, why didn't this get taken care of? Why didn't that? I mean, we're dealing with a 1958 Coliseum. You know, things are going to break down eventually.
And since you mentioned the fire, or Steve mentioned all the fire improvements, the improvements that the fire marshal wants, that needs to be done. I mean, that's something I think we would all prioritize here, because when you bring a group in, they're having to pay an extra fee for a fire watch.
We agree.
And there's probably groups that are going to say, I'm not
it's
going
not
to pay a
nothing
fire
that
watch,
Civic-
you're not going to come. And then we've got this being thrown at us all of a sudden that.
But
this
it's
needs to
not,
be way
I want you to
behind fire
understand, it's
marshal
not
stuff.
Civic Events that's doing it, like taking care of it like this. I would prefer to bring all of my facility projects together. Unfortunately, I was directed to bring this as to a discussion to you all and then move forward with it. This wasn't my personal decision. This wasn't a Civic Events decision.
So where is the $260,000
Coming from.
Hot funds.
the excess hot funds, or what's already budgeted for civic events, or what?
I was thinking from the total pie.
So it'd be, civic events would be getting that much more.
I can't answer those questions, Mel.
Yes, as a capital project, yes.
Okay, so,
Is this going to affect booking the Spur or the Coliseum as much as a fire watch fee would affect booking the Coliseum?
Again, it just depends on what your opinion on what's needed, first and foremost. I mean, for me,
We
of
haven't
course,
been
I would like
asked.
to do the fire
We
inspection.
haven't been asked.
I can't
get
answer
that.
that. I'm bringing it to the board right now. That's what I'm doing.
And I understand the position you are, Sid, but understand our frustration. We've done, in the last couple of years, we've done walkthroughs on the facilities. We've come and discussed the items. We've prioritized the items. It took 2 or 3 meetings. Then we took it to council. And then someone with a stroke of a pen spends $260,000 without really a consideration. I mean,
I understand where you're coming from, but again, it's not
I
personally
understand.
my
I'm not
decision.
asking you to defend that point. I'm
Okay.
just making the point, okay? That we do due diligence to go out there, get bids, things like that, over the last couple of years. We both attended a meeting with the fire marshal, which to me is
Very important.
very, very important. However, we're taking a good chunk of the money that we have in our fund balance to do something. And as far as I know, unless you know different, there's no cost sharing in this because we're really doing it to appease a customer of ours, correct?
Not even. It's working like it is.
Well,
It doesn't seem an emergency at all.
Yes, they're a lessee. It's not uncommon for the owner of a property to replace equipment like this.
I understand, but is there any cost sharing agreement that we have with the lessee on items like this? And if there is, have we asked for them?
Yes.
This would have gone just straight through without. This would have gone through really quick, straight through without much discussion at all, I think, if someone on the board, someone at the hotel association that collects the funds, somebody was given the heads up on before November 7th or November 21st, or before today. I mean, it just looks real shady to me. That's the only reason it just looks really, really, really shady. Really shady.
I'm fine with pushing it back. It's on the board. I'm fine with pushing it back
Disappointed
and
in the
just
city
bringing it all.
manager if he's the one that asked you to do it this way. And I'm surprised, I mean, somebody from the staff didn't let one of us know in any of our capacities that this was going on. You might want to go hear about it and, see what's going on.
We did. We did.
I didn't hear anything.
We let our board president know.
Okay. Before November 7th or 21st?
Yes. We've discussed it in the policy meeting,
Okay.
in the committee meeting.
It came up in the
I was thinking
policy meeting, and
September.
the same
Sorry.
questions that I'm asking now, I asked, but I wanted to ask it in a public forum versus in an office.
Wow.
And can't we just voice our opinion that we don't think that this is right?
Can't hear.
Can't we just voice our opinion that
Yes.
we don't think this is right and we
At
recommend
this
it?
point, we're asking for your recommendation. We've been directed to put it on the council agenda, take it to the board. We just need your recommendation at this point. You can express your frustration as part of this process, as part of that recommendation.
I'd like to make a few, if I can, a few comments here, and then I will, at the end, make a motion to table this until someone from city manager's office can come explain to us our role. If that needs to include legal as well, but our role, and I see us no differently than Costa DC. We're an enterprise fund. We collect tax dollars. They approach Costa DC with any type of project or any spending of any kind with their funds. I assume we should be treated the same. So again, I feel as if there are decisions being made without us being involved. And I know several council members that have voiced that we have committees and boards and advisory members to vet this stuff through before it gets to us, so we don't have to spend our time 8 hours on a council meeting. So we're not even able to do that for them. So again, at this point, I'll make a motion to table this until we can get further information from the city manager's office or whoever made this decision, obviously not Civic Events, but whoever made this decision with us not knowing.
All right, we have a motion to table this item. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We do have our recommendation.
I do want to go back, though, and say one thing on,
Move on. Did you have anything to add as part of that discussion?
You were thinking it already.
I was at that meeting. So the meeting was with the finance director and two of the assistant city managers and the stock show and rodeo. And so that meeting went that, okay, we didn't cool like we should have in the spur, and that's why this came up.
Let me interrupt you for a second, because
Sure.
I understand you're defending the position, but it really wasn't your call, and I understand
I'm not
that.
defending it, I'm just stating facts.
Yeah, we're just-
That is that city managers had a meeting. They brought in the stock show and rodeo, which promulgated us having to do a chiller, but you know, why,
meeting-
you know, maybe I should have been invited to the meeting too, because we're gonna make a recommendation to spend hot funds, and nobody from Civic Events was invited to this meeting, but the stock show and rodeo was. And I
Well,
understand.
we were invited. Kyle and I were invited because it dealt with our facility. So we were invited to the meeting.
No, but he's talking about the board. I just
yes.
asked Steve to come up with an explanation because we weren't at the meeting. So I know we want to end this discussion, but I just wanted to see if there is an explanation.
Okay, and I understand, and I understand, Steve, your position. You went to a meeting and were given a directive from one of your bosses, and I understand that.
Correct.
I'm just voicing my concern from a board standpoint, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And, in the meantime, we've identified a problem at the Spur with some of their equipment as far as needing to be cleaned. And so they've done that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that has helped tremendously over there. So that'll take a little bit more of the load off of those. But the fact still remains that we've got 3 chillers, and 3 chillers need to be working. So
Well, I'm with Steve. I just want to know what the board's director. I mean, what are we here for?
I'll go home if they don't need me.
Exactly. Believe me, I've got other things to
We
do.
don't want that.
All right. We ready to move forward?
Yes, I did want to go back to when we were discussing about the River Stage and Farmers Market budget. Farmers Market, we never mentioned that we were over budget on revenue with Farmers Market. With the River Stage, I do remember we did say that we were over. Unfortunately, we were at $338 under from where we were. But if we start looking back at the past years that we have had, we've pretty much made a significant improvement at the River Stage from what years have been. So 98.9%.
No, I agree. I think we hit 50 or 60 last year, and you hit 90-something%. So
Next year, though, we'll be well over.
Yeah, no, why I asked that was, it's even in the minutes from last time, that you said the McNeese Convention Center is the only facility that has not exceeded in total revenue. Mr. Walker says that more conventions are needed.
My apologies. I don't never include the farmers market like that. But my apologies. I'll make sure that I correct that statement, though.
Okay.
But with what we've done, we've had a very well fiscal year. Next year, we'll probably do better than what we've done.
all right, let's move forward. Discussion and consideration of allowing a discounted rental rate of the Foster Communications Coliseum for the San Angelo Broadway Academy. Now, Angelo Brooks had come forward and had made a motion if we would continue, or ask us a request to continue at the current discounted rate that SABA was in over the last 7 or 8 years. I understand that they were planning on moving back to the auditorium, but the auditorium rates, unbeknownst to them, went way up. And so they were not able to really afford that facility, and asked us if they could continue in our facility, the Coliseum, at the rate that they had been in. I had requested that we table that motion because I knew that we were going to be discussing policies. And during the policies, I was hoping that we could address it versus a SABA-specific item, but more of a nonprofit type situation, where instead of just going up, making any kind of recommendation for one, we could make a recommendation for all. Unfortunately, we were unable to come up with an agreement, and so I asked that this come back and get put on so we could go ahead and deal, because I know SABA's got things that they need to plan for the upcoming year, and so instead of leaving them in limbo, I asked Mr. Walker to put it back on the agenda so we could go ahead and deal with that. You know, one of my concerns is this, is I understand that, you know, SABA is a small revenue stream for civic events. However, I also feel that nonprofits, things that deal with children, kids, give them something to do, they're not going to be the big money makers that we might get with a big concert and things like that. But I also think that they're a necessary part of what makes San Angelo the community that it is. And I think it's important that we give them a venue that they can afford and can be able to continue, so that that their venture, the kids that are served by it, the parents. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is this, is that all these people, they're pretty much local San Angelo people. I love the big concerts. Man, I had a great time last year with the big concerts. But at the end of the day, the promoters come in, they make their money, and they leave. Saba, they're here, they're family, they stay in San Angelo. So with that being said, we need to go ahead and deal with whether or not we want to continue doing the discount for Saba. And I'll open it up for discussion.
Can I ask one question before we get started? Yes, sir. Do the policies even allow, because we're strictly to adhere to policy and bylaws, do they even allow us the flexibility to grant something like this? I know it was done in the past, maybe not correctly, but does the policy currently, as it stands, or bylaws, allow us to give any discount to anybody?
Well, in my review of the policies, I know that we're asking to give discounts to promoters for, like, say, a multiple user discount. So, you know, what differentiates one discount from another?
How about, since we've already been doing this for, how long have they been under this rate plan?
For the past 9 years. 7 to 9 years. At the Coliseum, it'd be 7.
Do you know right off how much a year, how much in revenue they spend with us?
Revenue is probably about, total is about 21,000, somewhere around there with all the shows.
So that's about half of the excess on the budget for the Coliseum right there. So the Coliseum met and exceeded its budget with the way it is right now. I would ask that we just continue it for another 2 or 3 years like it is. Give them time to, if they need to be looking for something else, give us time to figure out what to do with stuff.
Whatever y'all's recommendation for the council is, it's council's approval.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make the motion that we pass to council to continue Saba's discount as it is right now and let it go.
I would like to add something
Do you
before
want to add a
you
time
vote.
frame to that, or is that your motion?
Well, for a period, let's say a period of 3 years,
I'll
to
second
be
it.
reconsidered at the end of a 3-year period.
All right, we currently have a motion that we continue the discount for San Angelo Broadway Academy.
We have some comment down here.
I'm sorry, I
Do
apologize.
you have a comment? I would go with your motion, but if you include that all the criteria is met, that includes doing everything that their contract allows them or dictates that they do. If they've met their guidelines, then I think that would be a great thing.
Are you talking about their 501 quals and stuff like that?
No, I'm
Or their
talking
financial obligations.
financial obligations, that they are met as dictated.
Now, in the policy, we have a specific
With this-
policy that says payment within 30 days.
That is correct. And the thing about it is we're making a recommendation. Of course, billing and collection does not fall necessarily under our responsibility. That is something that the civic events manager has to deal with Saba. But there is but I know that there is a policy in place by legal that any time that there's a show, you have 10 business days, and we certainly need to adhere by that. Okay, if there's been any kind of issue in the past, we certainly don't need to have that issue going forward.
I don't disagree with you at all. I just not sure how we can put that into the motion other than by tagging on the end of it to say something like maintaining and following all current existing financial policies.
Well, I think that policy is already, anytime you sign an agreement with somebody,
It's
that's
already there.
already in there. That's already implied in there.
I have a question for the board. So what happens when we go to the cash fee schedule and we up the price for everybody else, and then Saba stays at the
This will
same
be
price?
grandfathered in.
I'm going to ask the question again. Someone point to me in the policy that allows us to give this special of a discount, this amount. I'm all for nonprofits, trust me, but I want to make sure I'm following in black and white what I can and can't do. I mean, I understand the multiple shows discount, but I mean,
when we normally, we
40%
have
discount?
another, somebody else that asked for a discount that they wanted to do a kids' Christmas caroling event at the River Stage. That was gonna take approximately an hour to 2 hours. We get, special requirements like that have to come to the board, to you all, and then have to go to city council for approval. So I would imagine we would get opening this up right here just opens, to me, it just opens up personally. It opens up to other nonprofits asking the same question of, well, why weren't we grandfathered too as well 3-4 years ago too?
That's my concern, that without a policy that covers overarching all nonprofits, my concern is that when we open it up for one, there's going to be people knocking down the doors to ask for their discount too.
And I'm fine with taking, however they have to take the board recommendation, let's move it forward. I would just recommend, I hope that we have, of course, I know you would be in attendance and stuff, so to be able to speak upon the board's recommendation and everything else too as well.
Does SABA not fall under the multi-use?
Yes,
policy?
yes they do.
So does this not cover it?
Well, the multi-use it's on the facility fee too as well, which they already get 25 cents. They pay us a 25-cent facility fee. It doesn't have anything stated for like the rentals. For myself, you know, I have to charge the base rental price. I can't go below that base rental price of what has been mandated on the cash fee schedule, on the fee schedule. So that's where I stand at it. I can't.
So basically, for them to get the, what is it, 50% discount that's already in there for the multi-use, because they've been here for years, they have to prove hotel rooms, right? Is that the only thing they're lacking?
Well, it's not a convention.
Yeah, it's not a convention. Yeah.
What I'd recommend, there is a motion on the table. If you need to sit down and do a contract with SABA as the motion is made, according to the way the motion is made, I understand your point. You know, we always keep going back on how we've done this in the past, how we do this in the past. You know, a point comes to mind how we bring promoters in and we cap how much they pay. Again, there's nothing in writing. So since we're doing facility review, that's something to keep in consideration as we complete the policy reviews, that we ensure that we include those types of items so that we can be in compliance. Anyways, back to the motion that Don made.
I seconded it.
We go ahead and have a second. If I could go ahead and get a vote, all in favor, say aye.
Public discussion, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. My apologies.
We've
All right.
been discussing.
We do have a motion, we do have a second. If there's any public discussion, we can go ahead and open the floor at this time for any public discussion.
Very quickly, my name is Andrew Brooks. I'm the technical director for San Angelo Broadway Academy, and I have only been involved with the program since 2014. But I do completely agree with the sentiment. I think a overarching policy would probably be the better bet from the city's standpoint. But I do thank you guys very much for taking into consideration that the program has been here for 11 years now. And you're absolutely right that it does serve those kids who live here in San Angelo. It gives them something to do, educates them in performing arts. And without this program, I can't say that it professionally affects a whole lot of these kids, but it does teach them a lot about what to expect when they get out into the real world. Helps with their communication skills. It helps them to break out of their shells, and that's what we see more often than anything. So it is a good program. And just to one question that I had was, and I've been hearing, what makes it to where we can make these recommendations or give these discounts. In 2014, when I came on, there was already a plan in place due to the city auditorium's closure at the time that grandfathered us in at that specific rate that we were getting the auditorium fees basically for performing at the Coliseum. And well, as you said, when we were planning on going back to the auditorium when it opened, and it changed management and rates increased. But my question is, what was in place? Because we've never had anything in writing stating that grandfathered cost was even in effect.
Right. That's
So-
that's part of the problem.
I understand that. I understand that.
That's the whole thing. That's part of the problem, so hopefully that we can alleviate that and
Right,
get
and
something
that's
in
my
writing.
point, is I think by taking this step and forwarding this recommendation, and again, I'm glad that that's a decision that you have come to, but I think that is, one of the most important things in getting it up to the people that are actually gonna say, yes, this is okay. But the biggest thing is to make sure that that is put in writing. And any contract that we have as an individual organization moving forward needs to reflect the accurate fees that we're paying. I think that's the biggest thing. And to address the payment issues, a lot of this was before my time, but the problem is that for 10 years, you operate off of handshake deals where people say, hey, you know what, don't worry about it, just pay us 60 days, 30 days. And I've spoken with Lori about this several times. I understand completely what's in a contract and what the expectations are, and as does our organization. However, when you operate off of the same way of doing things multiple years in a row, you get into a habit of not doing what the contract says and only doing what is expected of you. In the military, we have had a saying that, today's favor becomes tomorrow's expectation. And I think that's kind of what ended up happening. So hopefully, this is the groundwork that we're laying to start moving forward and getting everything in writing so that there's no questions about what's going on. And my hope is that this doesn't just stop at us, that this applies across the board in a larger overarching policy that can not just benefit us, but benefit all the nonprofits that are trying to get the space available to them that just can't afford it.
Yeah, I understand. And but the thing is, Saba was in a unique situation where they had an agreement with the auditorium. They got displaced in their back. My recommendation to you, whatever time that's granted to you, okay, just know then that time will fly pretty fast.
Yes, it will.
And at that point, you'll have to probably make some accommodations, or at that point, maybe policies will be different. But just know that 3 years passes pretty fast, so plan for the future. And if we could just get in compliance with everything,
Absolutely.
I would appreciate it, okay?
I do want to say, we're never going to be those big concerts. We're never going to be that.
And I don't expect you to, sir. But what you do for the kids and San Angelo, we appreciate, okay?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Did you have any questions for me? Thank you.
So,
Could someone
any other
restate
comment?
the motion?
yes,
I'll
we're
make-
still at the motion. We're in a second. We have public comment.
Could someone restate the motion?
Can I make one last comment before and then we'll go to the vote?
That's fine.
I'll say that I'll probably vote against this, not because I truly believe the discount should be there. I'm just a firm believer if you're going to do it for one, you're going to do it for all. And I truly believe we should look at policies to set an overarching policy to allow a discount to all like nonprofits, or at the board's discretion at that point. But that is the only reason I'm voting against this, not because of the true concept and philosophy behind it. So.
Duly noted. If you could restate your comment, Don? Your motion, please, sir?
Give it a try.
Okay.
I'd make a motion that we forward to council to keep Saba at the discounted rate that they've been having for the last 9 years, and that rate be formalized into a contractual type agreement between us and Saba for a 2 to 3 year period. Probably 3 years would be best, at which time it would be renegotiated in good faith by both parties.
Are we allowing Symphony to come back too?
Well, let's
Can we
deal
discuss
with
it?
this issue
Just check.
first. Do I have a second on that
That works
motion?
for my second still.
We still have a second. Any other comment? We'll take it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
6-1 on that vote. Thank you very much.
And I totally understand.
I think Jaime
All
wanted to
right,
explain that.
let's move forward.
Hold on one
Review-
second. Hold on 1 second. Mr. Jaime Guerrero would like to come back up here and
Okay.
discuss something before we move forward with that, all right?
Yeah, that's not a problem. Welcome back, Mr. Guerrero.
Well, again, I thought since the meeting was still going on, I could run over to Don's computer. I told you that information was readily available, and so I got on, and I found the answer for you. So I'm going to pass out a little paper, and I apologize for the size, but I was kind of trying to do it quickly.
Saving trees, saving trees.
So if I'm not mistaken, the original question was the remaining $42,000 in the Chamber of Commerce line in Fund 605. There's a question whether we still owe that to the chamber or not. So I went in and dug into the detail of that account, and if you notice, the little paper I pass out to you is kind of very quick in nature. But for that account, the original budget was $865,000 as per contract, and we received a clawback of $171,854.67. So you'll see that $693,145 number as the year-to-date total in that 605 line. So that does represent 12 months of payout to the chamber plus the clawback figures this little page shows. Now, where the 42 comes into plays, as you'll notice on the bottom half of that paper, we had made a budget amendment in anticipation of that clawback for $129,475. But when the clawback actually came in at $171, that difference is $42,000, which is that exact difference. And so optimally, what would have happened, we would have done a second budget amendment to tie it to that 171, but that obviously didn't happen, and that's why you show what appears to be an underpayment of that budget line. Does that make sense to everybody?
Did you know why the clawback changed?
Well, the budget amendment, I think, was just an anticipated number. I don't know if there was, if we had that actual number yet or not. So I can't tell you the difference between those two numbers, but I can tell you that was the difference between the actual and then the budget amendment that was made to that account. Excuse me.
Thank you for finding that out.
Certainly, we're here to help. And again, like I said, looking through the blue book, the detail obviously isn't there. It's made to be a summary report, but we have that information available sometimes at our fingertips and sometimes down the hall in Don's office. So we're always happy to provide whatever information you need.
Well, we appreciate you getting right back to us.
Certainly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
All of our 1,000 TV viewers at home that I'm sure are watching this right now, can you explain clawback?
Well, I can certainly try. It's the amount of the contribution that was not used in a prior period, and so as part of the contract, that comes back to the city and to taxpayers for allocation or use in a future or current year.
And that will go now into 605.
That's correct.
Balance.
Because that's where it originally came out of. Any revenues we come back will eventually fall to fund balance unless the board or council finds a new use for it.
Thank you.
Real quick, just to expand on that, basically it was money that they didn't spend in last year's budget, and so it just goes back into the 605 fund that it came from.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's go ahead and move forward then to review of civic events policies and recommending any amendments. Until the ends, that's where we got to. We'll still have another meeting and get the rest of it, but the rest of it should go pretty fast, but we're just gonna go for the first half today.
We'll go ahead and start with the civic events review of our policies. Of course, there's going to be many items that we probably want to speak about and discuss different things, of course. There may be a few mistakes in there, just point them out for me, and I'll make sure that we correct them. If there's any other items that you would like to add, of course, this is not the final. We can all speak upon it. There was just a committee meeting that we had, and we discussed whatever internal. I'm more than willing to answer whatever outside questions that we do have as well. that concern with these policies. First off, with our facility policies, we never had a vision statement or a mission statement too. So just like the bylaws, we were going to add the vision statement and the mission statement towards the top of it, which of course would be to be the preferred host for entertainment, business, and community events in West Texas. And our mission statement is to enhance the quality of life of our citizens and business partners by providing quality events and facilities in a clean, comfortable, and safe environment.
Okay, I'm just going to start. On the vision statement, shouldn't we have something about conventions in that vision statement?
I'm for it.
I mean, we are the convention center.
Yes, to be the preferred host for entertainment, business, and conventions and community events. I'm fine with that.
For community events. But, okay, that would be good if we just add it there. Anybody? Okay.
I'll watch the tape. Moving forward, I will say with the, let's go with alcohol, of course. Sorry, let's start with definitions. I apologize. So we did add in certain terms, and just to explain what those terms mean to others who wouldn't know what the meaning of certain terms were. So of course we added in booking, which is an event with a fully executed short-term facilities agreement and required payment. I am going to change that from security fee to and a required payment according to the fee schedule. Cap fee, of course, a rate that is allowed to fluctuate but which cannot surpass a stated amount. Conventions was already in our old policy. I was just moving it up to the definition side of it. So conventions, of course, is formal assemblies of people, generally members, representatives, or delegates as of a profession, industry, trade group, interested group, political party, or fraternal society who are meeting for a common purpose and utilize local hotel rooms. And then other definitions are hold a request from a leasee for a date, multiple date user, events that state at least 6 performances in the venues during any 12-month period, scheduled an event held with a required rental payment, and then ticketed events, any event that requires a fee for admission, including trade shows, tool sales, boat shows, etc. One of the things that we did take out of the policies, as well as any type of numbers, figures, amounts, we took those out and just changed the wording to it to see in the fee schedule, according to the fee schedule, instead of stating a certain amount inside of our policies.
Is the multiple user always 6 events a year, or is that somewhere later down in the policy?
It's in the policy. We'll be getting into it. It's part of the policy in the EMS.
Can it be less than 6? Can it be like somebody coming twice a year?
That was just
a multiple date user.
I mean, I would imagine that would be upon you all saying, "Hey, this is the amount of events that makes it a multiple date user." As of anybody that was outside of events that stated at least 6 performances in the venue during any 12-month period, that would be.
I mean, can we relate it to like possibly like conventions as well? Like, you know, because I know that's tied to a discount. So what I'm asking is, can a multiple date user also be defined as someone who comes twice a year instead of 6 times a year? Is that a number that we might want to?
We probably need to look at what the numbers are when we discuss the multiple date user, because those are in this part is just a definition of what the multiple date user is, and then let's break down how that works out in the policy and stuff, what the terms are.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I mean, also that's one of the things that came up last year when CVB came up, and I think that's where we came up with the multiple date users, and we had a breakdown of how many the discount that they would get on hotel rooms based on the number of dates that they booked and how many rooms they booked.
On the booking, does that an event with a fully executed short-term facilities agreement, and is that a paid? I know you're changing the word, but does that mean?
It would be a required payment according to the fee schedule. So
is it a booking if they haven't put down the actual fee yet?
So there's different things. Okay, so you have the booking, you have a scheduled event, and then you have a hold. So when you first call in, it'll be, hey, I would like to request 10-day hold on something that I'm trying to find out, an event or bringing somebody down. So then we do the hold. So then you go into, sorry. most people would go ahead and just, well, I'll go ahead and put the deposit down. So then it's a scheduled event since it's already scheduled in the system and stuff with the paid deposit or paid amount according to it. And then you go into the booking. It's an actual booking once we have the agreement plus we have the fee.
The booking and scheduled,
Okay.
both require a fee?
No, sir. The booking is going to be, well, yes, sir. The booking will require a fee, but it also requires the short-term facilities agreement and stuff. Most times people will put a deposit down, but they're not ready to sign their agreement, their contract. So it's not fully booked until we have that agreement executed.
Hold first, then the
Okay.
schedule, then the booking.
And when you look at it like this, do we have a lot of holds? We of course, we get holds all the time. Artists, wrestling, comedy shows, whatever, they do make holds, and they'll hold multiple dates because they're just trying to map out their certain schedule, the timeline of everything. So sometimes we only have it until the hold, and then it goes into a scheduled, and then we don't get the agreement because they have to send it to their legal team and all these other things too as well. So we don't make it a booking until then. All of those are done.
Yeah, we had the same questions, but I think it's common practice what they're doing. I mean, basically somebody calls in, you pencil it in, then the next step, it's almost like you put it in ink, but it's erasable, and then they put it in solid ink. So it's kind of standard practice the way they're doing it on a progressive type basis.
It's just details, but I was thinking the scheduled would be the signed agreement. I figured the payment's going to be last. But, I mean, that's fine. That's fine.
Next, if you go into the advertising and naming rights, I actually put it on here because it wasn't on the actual original policies, but it's something that we do need to be able to place in there, which has just the city's contracted agent for marketing, naming rights, sponsorships, and advertising on city properties holds the exclusive right to solicit and make such contracts on the city's behalf. All such transactions must be conducted by and through the contracted advertising agent. The city's contracted advertising agent holds the exclusive right to place city advertising other than public notices and employment ads with media outlets.
Now, if you're advertising for a concert, do you pay that, or does the promoter pay that?
The promoter's paying out for most of the advertising. Now, we do have a marketing. Now, I will say this. We did budget this year for marketing dollars to be able to get billboard advertisement for events as well as bringing in other conventions, bringing more business to the convention center and stuff like that, advertisement that I think we definitely do need to have, just to help us with others booking our facility, just to let them know they're welcome to book our facility.
Do you work with the CVB on that part?
On which part, sir?
The advertising for events?
Actually, sometimes the promoters actually go over to the CVB and they want to discuss it with them because they do it in other markets. A few of our former promoters, they actually went to the CVB to discuss what they could do for the promoters, but I personally don't get involved with them going to the CVB and stuff too as well, because most of them already know that stuff from Comic-Con, whenever we did the Gary Allen concert as well. All of them said they went to our CVB to discuss the events with them.
Hold on, we have a comment from CVB.
April, I have never once had any promoter ever contact me. So I can tell you that firmly. One thing I would ask on the advertising, I would like to know where that advertising is done, since we're trying to fill hotel rooms and this is dollars being used for promoting concerts and bringing people in. Are those advertisements being done outside of the city limits, or are they only been done inside? Because if we're not doing them outside, we're not going to get hotel nights to come into our community. So that is just a concern I have.
I think we are mistaken. This is for McLaughlin. This isn't about us promoting any concerts and events and stuff. We don't internally promote concerts and events for anybody. This is strictly for advertising, citywide marketing, McLaughlin Advertising, just stating that they have the official, they have the advertising and naming rights
Marketing dollars you just mentioned that you put in the budget this year. So I think the question is where are those marketing dollars being spent, but maybe that's for a different spot, a different time.
Yes. And we haven't touched anything. It was just something that we did this year that we would like to be able to offer and stuff.
Future agenda items when we come to that?
Will do. No problem. No problem at all. If you go to alcohol, I didn't put alcohol on this one right here, but just the terminology of certain things, just so it can read the same way that the agreement reads with our concessionaire agreement, is just updating certain terms. Of course, the auditorium is taken off of there, adding in a few things, adding in compliance with the BYOB clause in the concessionaire contract. And also one of the big parts on there is the lessee must employ at lessee's sole expense, a minimum of one local off-duty uniform SAPD or city marshal certified police officer as a security at all functions at which alcohol is present. Total number of officers will be based on event criteria and number of tickets sold or a number of attendees.
Okay, I have a question on this alcohol. So we've hit this before in the last couple of years. When these promoters come in and they want a portion of the alcohol sales, where does that fall into the policies here? Because to me, that's something that there should be guidelines for, so Carlo doesn't have to go, okay, what'd I do this time? So
I agree with you. That's why we're doing this policy meeting, and we have certain things that we're placing in there to be negotiating and stuff. And then sometimes Carlo, we can't tell Carlo he can't give 5%, 10% of his own.
right, but I think, I could be totally wrong, but I think sometimes he feels a little pressured into it. Not that he's ever said that, but he looks like a bad guy that lost the convention or the whatever it is because he didn't want to give up some of his hard-earned dollars.
But I can see it from both sides too, as a promoter too, as well. That if we have to start negotiating and come into an agreement, if we want to keep our River Stage rental rate, River Stage revenue going up, we're going to have to give off on some things as well too. If you want to get the major acts to come through San Angelo, Texas, as we have with Gary Allen and other events too as well.
Okay, so if that is the deal, that should be
Stated in
somehow
the policy.
Stated in here in the policy.
And that's why I'm bringing it up to us, and we can put that into the policy. Things like that, that are things that I would like to make sure that we do have in the policy so we can negotiate those.
Put it right, because I agree. You got a lot of people who are risking a lot of money coming in, and alcohol is a good way for them to hedge their bets on the profitability of their venture. Especially someplace like the River Stage, you never know what weather it's going to bring to you, things like that. But I think that's pretty standard practice, is that the promoters and the concessionaire do come to an agreement, but putting it in a policy might be a good idea.
I think we just need to make sure that what we put in there doesn't go against Carlos' agreement with the city. Somehow or other, we need to bounce them against each other.
Well, I think that Carlos' agreement with the city is that he gives a certain percentage back to the city.
Yes, sir.
But once again, if Carlos knows that if a promoter comes in, he's going to have business, and if he makes that agreement with that promoter, that's going to give him additional business. It behooves him maybe to give something up, and I think
Always also know that if the promoter says, well, I don't want to serve alcohol, then we lose it 100%, no matter what. And a promoter can decide that too as well. So we also have to look at it from that aspect too. And most of the times, if it's a big concert or it's going to be we can see that it's going to do well, and that the promoter has spent a good amount of money just to bring that event to San Angelo. He works with them, So I don't think that's a problem. I just agree that something needs to be put in writing for that to happen. And I wouldn't put it in the alcohol section. There's another side that has concessions. And I think it would belong better in the concessions part instead of just alcohol.
Well, let's address it under concessions then. I said, let's address it under concessions.
Concessions, okay. Okay, so booking schedule.
Oh, one more question
Okay.
on alcohol. Okay, and I know this is going to come up, and you said something earlier. So in this section, you actually have SAPD mentioned. Where are we going to address that under security as far as?
The question is, can we have a sheriff do it, correct? Is that?
Right.
Or DPS officer, or?
Per city policy, because of the internal, sheriffs normally do not do a lot of stuff inside the smoking ordinance. There's other things, and so the city requires us to regulate it. At least one uniform officer must be SAPD. Any other entity can work those events, and we have plenty of sheriffs, border patrol, anyone certified within the state. We've had Sterling City, Coke County. You just have to have one minimum SAPD because of the internal ordinances, city ordinances and stuff.
I mean, I'd like to allow the others, but I do like the idea of a SAPD. They've got.
If anyone's going to
a
call
view on their
dispatch,
shoulder
it's
that-
coming straight from them. Other than that, they go through 2 dispatchers before they get to us.
Have access to help a lot quicker if something does break out and, you know, something. So I agree there. That's good. By the way, Sid,
Sorry.
the one you handed out to us went straight from advertising and naming rights
It didn't have the alcohol portion.
to booking. It didn't have anything about the alcohol. So some of the people up here may not.
The alcohol
I
portion.
don't think Tim was looking lost.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm reading the screen, so it should be.
Well, that skipped the alcohol. It didn't have.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, I
I'm
didn't
reading
place the
screen.
alcohol on here because it was
Well, it wasn't in here.
terminology, contract terminology, but I'll fix that for you and give it to you.
It was on the stuff you emailed, though. I just didn't print
Booking schedule. A fully executed short-term facilities agreement and required fee in the amount of the building rent be received within 10 business days of the leasee's request. If the full fee and executed contract is not received by such date, that book date may be released.
Wait. After
Y'all have
alcohol
booking
was
schedule? Say it again.
After alcohol was booking, before booking schedule.
And Michaela's the only one that knows that because she's the only one that brought the one that you emailed.
This is my thing, are we going through every section of
Yes.
it, or am I going through just the portions that were changed, a lot of the different wording and stuff like that, or?
I just
mean,
have
don't-
questions, that's why I know it.
Okay, let's go with it. Who doesn't have, I guess, booking and that too as well, so I can give you a copy right fast?
Everybody.
Well, it looks like we had printer malfunctions, but she's going to actually print it out the other portion of it. The original stated booking.
In advance or more.
The original stated one would be, with the exception of conventions and public events attended by at least 1,000 people, the use of facilities may be booked and guaranteed with a deposit up to 1 year in advance unless otherwise approved by the Civic Events Manager and documented for the Civic Events Advisory Board. Dates for conventions may be booked and guaranteed with a deposit up to 5 years in advance. Conventions are defined as formal assemblies, which was the definition which was taken out and brought up to the beginning for definitions. And then it says any leasee requesting to book a facility for an annual event may book the respective facility in the equivalent calendar day of the next year by forwarding the deposit required by the public facilities agreement. Following the present year events, providing no outstanding balance is due and no damages to the facility are incurred. The leasee may not assign this agreement or sublet the premises without approval of the Civic Events Manager. Facilities and dates are considered a contractual or confirmed commitment only upon the execution of the public facilities agreement by the event sponsor and the Civic Events Manager specifying all details of the commitment and the receipt of the required deposit. If a prospective lessee fails to sign the public facilities agreement and pay the required deposit upon request of lessor may book other events. Staff will inform promoters of any like events that are scheduled to occur 1 month prior to or after their planned event.
That was quick, but my question, it says, with the exception of a convention and public events attended by at least 1,000 people, how many people will this facility hold?
Depends on, I guess, 1,200 in the main area,
What if
whenever
it
it's
was-
seated, whenever it's,
What if it's banquet style with tables? Isn't it about 500?
I would say 500, 600. It just depends on the actual setup.
Tables, stage. I would suggest we change that to 500 people, because we're just not getting many 1,000 people events. And then my other question down another paragraph, I want to know, so if somebody's trying to book a convention in 2019, how do we hold those dates while the bidding process is going on? Because there's something in here, what about, you only hold it for 10 days or, I mean, we need something in there so if you or the CVB or somebody else is going after an event that's 2 or 3 years out, it takes a while. It takes more than 10 days to, and we don't, I mean, odds are nothing's going to happen to those dates, but there has to be some way to guarantee they will be held during the bidding process.
Kind of like when a promoter calls and asks for several dates and holds them, he may not make his decision within 10 days.
Not during the bidding process, so.
That came up when we were talking about the definitions, when we were having our policy meetings, because there's going to be times when somebody wants a convention date so far in advance, but at the same time, they're not ready to sign their facility agreements. From my understanding, I mean, Lori has been doing a pretty good job of holding those dates and then following up with them and asking them, hey, is that date still going to be viable for you guys? I mean, we hashed that out. I don't know any other way to phrase it into a policy to.
Well, I'm just going to put it out there. We've got tax dollars being spent in another department, CVB, to go out and bid on a convention. Now, odds are, if they're bidding on something 2 to 3 years down the road, nobody else is going to come in and get those dates. But they have to know while they're bidding on those dates that those dates are held.
But with the 2 or 3 years, I mean, nobody privately can come in here and book 2, 3 years out anyway. Only CVB can book out that far.
Is that mentioned in here? I missed it if it is.
We can keep reading through it and go from there, but I mean, we can put that in there. That's not a problem, but I don't think it's been a concern. I see what you're saying. It should be added in there in the terminology and stuff like that, but it hasn't been where we didn't hold it and we didn't hold it for them. Sometimes we've held it and it was held and didn't get released.
Well,
then
that needs to be addressed too.
Right, that goes
Should there
both
just be
ways.
a separate section for CVB? Because that's going to be pretty unique.
That's fine. So we can put it under just convention CVB and then put
CVB bookings or something.
Okay.
Because that is going to be different. And the CVB will need to follow up on that too and let you know if the event's going somewhere else. You know,
So there also should be, just like this year where there was a change in staff in another department, where this department follows up. It says, hey, we got these dates held, you know, maybe we should be checking these things out 6 months or so.
Yeah. Well, it's a back and forth communication. I mean, you know, if they're going to hold that and CVB comes back and realizes they're not going to, they also need to communicate. It needs to be a two-way communication between Civic Events and CVB. I think if y'all talk to each other on a regular basis, I think a lot of those types of things will be alleviated.
Agree.
So maybe discuss with Diane maybe how that paragraph for CVB should be
that's
written
fine.
in here?
Definitely.
Okay.
That's fine, and we'll put it under CVB booking or conventions.
yeah, because that's going to be totally different than just even promoters.
Just make it its own.
And then as far as the number of people, are y'all good with changing it down to 500 versus 1,000? It says, with the exception of conventions and public events attended by at least 1,000 people, the use of the facilities may be booked and guaranteed with a required payment up to 1 year in advance unless otherwise approved by the Civic Events Manager and documented for the Civic Events Advisory Board. I mean, 1,000 people just doesn't happen. Anybody against that?
Not me. I'm fine with that.
That's fine.
Small.
All right. Are we through booking schedule?
Now we're on booking schedule.
That's what I meant to say, two booking
Mac.
schedule.
Booking schedule, a fully executed short-term facilities agreement and required fee in the amount of the building rent be received within 10 business days of the lessee's request. If the full fee and executed contract is not received by such date, the book date may be released. And what that was actually on the old policy that was part of the deposit schedule, but we changed it and made it the booking schedule. So we're trying to get rid of the word deposit. Yeah, it'll be a required payment, a fully executed short-term facilities agreement and required payment in the amount of the building rent be received within 10 business days. That's one thing that I did want to change on there too as well. Lessees with a history of delinquent payment must pay all anticipated charges within 10 business days prior to the event. Failure to do so will result in cancellation of the event and forfeiture of the total paid fee. The Civic Events Manager or the manager's designee may deviate from this policy in the case of an emergency. Facilities will not be leased, and any future dates will be released from lessees who have not paid in full all amounts owed to the city for past rentals.
Sid, here you were saying forfeiture of the total paid fee, and here it says total security fee.
Yes, so and that's another thing. I'm probably going to take out the word security and just put required payment.
Thank you, Lori.
So instead of paid fee, it would be required payment.
Here on the second part where it says lessee with a history of delinquent payment must pay all anticipated charges within 10 business days prior to the event. History. I mean, we going back a year, 5 years.
However y'all want to state it. There's not, I mean, I hate to put it out on the spot like this, but there's only one group that I know that's a delinquent with history payment, so I don't really.
It has happened with others.
My suggestion would be 5 years because most organizations probably change leadership at least with every 5 years.
That's fine. Any length of time. I mean, if someone's going to be late, they lose the opportunity for credit, basically, in advance.
So what would you all like to change on that?
Do you want to leave it open like that, or, I mean, spell out 5 years? If a group was here 6 or 7 years ago, they paid late, and they come back 7 or 10 years later. Wow. Do we need to specify a time frame?
Well, yeah, I mean, because otherwise, I mean, somebody said, well, they were late 20 years ago. I'm not gonna give them a discount. I mean, you got to specify
Well, it's
some
not the
kind of time.
discount, they just have to pay in
Well,
advance.
well, I mean, that's
which
what
they're gonna have to do anyway, so.
To pay in advance, yeah. So,
I don't know if it's a ticketed event, they may not come through if they have to pay in advance. It's the only thing I can think of, someone that's.
I don't know if you'll say lessons with history of delinquent payment within the past year must pay on anticipated charges. I mean,
This would probably be Lori and Dawn more.
Pretty much everyone, private and ticketed, they pay their base up front. When I send out an invoice, it's for linen costs, which is usually minimal, or our facility fee, and that comes straight to us as well.
I think we've addressed one of the problems that you've had today already.
And honestly, that is the only one. I've had one, I think that's been a 30-day, which is a change of hand. That was actually a Shannon to put that out there, and that's been about 4 years ago.
and if a new board for an organization comes into play, are we going to penalize them for anything that happened prior to that board? And that's why I think maybe saying something with lessees with a history of delinquent payment within the past year must pay on anticipated. Just throw in a year. That way, if a board changes or something like that, we voted on something earlier that basically what we're addressing right now. Okay, so going forward, if they do not meet the requirement, then put this into place. Okay.
So if they have an issue and they cannot book an event, they're going to call a board member and then they're going to call us and we're going to book it anyway? Or?
Laura, you're the keeper of the books, are you not?
I know, but I'm very good at saying no.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm very good at saying no.
I think he said if the board of the organization changes
Of
it,
the organization.
not us.
And I understand that, and I deal with that all the time because they do, but we probably don't need to go 5 years out. I would not go more than 3 years.
Well, that's why I'm saying do maybe a year. Just say lessees with a history of delinquent payment within the past year must pay on anticipated charges within 10
But
business
if this
days.
falls into place, someone doesn't pay and they're 60 or 90 days behind again, we will not issue another contract because they're not paid. Who are they going to call and have them call us, and they're still going to get in play?
They can call whoever they want. We're trying to get policies in place, and we're trying to start adhering by them, okay? And so what we put down is what we need to go by.
Okay.
Okay, moving forward. Confused, Carl?
I don't want to penalize anybody. We just want to get paid before we book a new booking.
Right.
That's the intent.
Yeah, we don't want to penalize it, but people once we put the reason we're going through all these policies is to put some guidelines to go out there, and then once we get guidelines, so that things don't start falling through the cracks, let's follow the guidelines.
Hey, let's split the difference. I suggest we put with a history of 2 years.
I don't have a problem with the time frame. If they've been delinquent, on their last event, whether it was 1 year ago or 10 years ago, they need to pay in advance. But it doesn't sound like there's many that aren't paid in full for solid charges. So I don't think there's a big issue. I think we've put it out there today. The group that may have been having a problem with seems like they know now. Whatever y'all want to put.
Well, I think
if you want to put
a
a time
time,
frame,
2 years is fine. Lessees with a history of delinquent payment within the past 2 years must pay all anticipated charges within 10 business days.
Doesn't matter.
Moving forward.
Yes.
So with camper hookups, one of the things that we did change out, we just took out what was available. 16 electrical hookups, 20 amp breakers are available at a rate of $20 per day. We just want people to go ahead and just look at their electrical hookups available at a rate by the approved fee schedule. Those are the small sentences those are just minor changes to me. I didn't make a slide out of for today.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
It was just a change in the sentence. Same thing with the Paseo grounds. If on the next page, there are electrical hookups available at a rate by the approved fee schedule. All we took out was just 46 camper hookups with 30 amp breakers are available at a rate of $20 per day. Just if somebody, none of the price, I don't believe any fee should be stated in our policy. We just put them forth to the fee schedule.
I think we did that in one of the last policies meetings. We didn't put the rate like that.
Okay.
On purpose.
And the only thing, this is just, it confuses me because under Paseo, then in that last sentence, it mentions the indoor arena. So is that just a typo?
Yes, it is.
Okay. It just confused me. It was easy to do.
Copy and paste don't work all the time. No. Prices will be adjusted. Yes, you're right. You're right. Prices will be adjusted to match those charged at the indoor arena. Rates change. At the indoor arenas, anytime rates change there. So if they change at the arena, they're going to change at the Paseo. And this isn't, I mean, this is what we've been abiding by since 2008.
Basically, you're saying you just have one fee schedule for the indoor arena and the Paseo, and if one changes, the other changes.
Yes, sir.
Pretty simple.
Under cancellations and refunds, again, just changing out the terms of taking off deposit and putting paid fee or required payment. And I'll just read it out. If the Civic Events Manager cancels a short-term public facility agreement at any time, lessee will receive a full refund of the paid fee. If lessee cancels the public facilities agreement prior to 90 days before the event, lessee will receive a refund equal to 1/2 of the paid fee. If the lessee cancels the public facilities agreement within 90 days of the event, lessee will forfeit the entire paid fee.
And the only question I have on that, because we just discussed it, was if the Civic Events Manager cancels a short-term facility agreement at any time, the lessee will receive the full refund. Do we need to just put the clause in there unless it's because of the delinquency? So nobody can come back and say, it says right here. I mean, are we going to give them the refund if we cancel because they're delinquent? Aren't we going to keep that money so we get paid?
I believe this is referring to if we cancel it because another event comes through and it has to be canceled.
It doesn't say that. It says if you cancel it, they get a full refund.
Where we have done that before and we refunded.
Emergency situations.
Yeah. Because it has happened and we've had to move them to Fort Concho and we gave them their money back and they went over there.
That's not what it says.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
But that's what I'm reading it. Everybody reads it different.
So how would you like that addressed?
No, so basically, you're going to just basically say if he refunds it for any reason other than delinquency. Yeah, because, yeah.
That's under cancellation and refunds. Can we move forward? Next one was an actual addition to it. So we've never had it into the policy of cap rates for events. Now, cap rates for events, they've been going on for years. Even when I was a promoter that was coming to rent out the facility, I was receiving cap rates on my events and stuff. So it's nothing that's brand new to the system. It's something that we just don't have stated into the policy, which is why we're here trying to clean up the language and stuff. So cap rate for public ticketed events. The Civic Events Manager has the authority to negotiate a cap rate of the venue being rented by a promoter or event company. The cap rate cannot exceed below the rental rate that is stated on the cash fee schedule and cannot exceed 10% of the total gross. So, of course, I can't go, if the rental of a facility is $1,500, I can't say, well, I'm going to give it to you this time for $1,000 on your first rental. We can't. That's not how the cap rate works. We're getting our rental base But for events, it just depends. Temptations cap rate will not be the same as a ZZ Top cap rate. Setting won't be the same as Travis Tritt cap rate. It's really a number. And if somebody asks us, well, where do you get that number from for the cap? There's no definition of where you actually get a number from for the cap. You just understand what's needed, and you're not trying to take. Some people will say, well, hey, let's just keep it 10% across the board, then we'll never have a concert here in San Angelo. No promoter will come in here with a big act and say, just go across the board and let's go 10% of the total gross. And they won't do that. They're going to walk away.
And I understand why you're doing it. When we were talking about policies, we always said, hey, we need to make policies so if any of us are never here and say you move on, that the next set of individuals will be able to continue. See, you have that promoter background. You know how to negotiate that.
But Anthony, prior Civic events managers did the same thing, though. They all did cap rates. So I mean, it wasn't that I just know it, but right. I mean, it's all in fairness. Even when I was getting the cap rate, it was adjusted correctly to what it probably should have been at.
What I'm saying is, for the next Civic events manager, you'd be able to give some guidance of like, hey, when you get this big a show, this should be your cap. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Definitely. And also you have to understand, when I came in, of course, concerts, wrestling, I didn't know how to cap a wrestling event, so I just went back and looked at what we've did previously with the history of with WWE and stuff like that too as well. So some of those terms that we've been on, that we've dealt with in years, with many years and stuff, I kept it the same rate and stuff too as well, because changing it on them could hurt us too as well.
This is one of the sections that we knew that's been happening, but nothing was ever in writing. I think Steve addressed it earlier, that we're doing things but not putting it in writing. So we asked that this be included so that there would be something in writing that allows the Civic events manager to have some negotiating room to whenever he's dealing with promoters.
Explain to me just like what a capped rate is, like just on layman's terms.
Let's take just take an event. So if the facility is $1,750 versus 10% of the, and it's a concert, and I know it's going to be a full house, packed house, I'm probably going to do something at $5,000, $4,500 as a cap rate and stuff. Because if anything, if you went on, I mean, that rate, your rental rate of 10% could be on an event that totally grossed $200,000. I mean, break down the numbers.
It'd be $20,000, so
exactly.
You can charge them, and then promoters are going to say, no, I'm not going to
No, they're not going to want that.
Now, is this addressed in the ticketing fees, in the fee schedule under ticketing fees?
We're going to have to do the fee schedule next after we do policies and stuff, so we're going to take care of.
And so you're limiting the amount that you're going to make on the event.
I'm not limiting it, I'm capping it. When you say limited, that sounds like I'm taking something away from us. I'm definitely not doing that. When you speak about the Coliseum, the reason why we did over the revenue is because I adjusted the cap fee and knew how to negotiate that part of it. That's a reason why we had other concerts and we had those big concerts, and it's a negotiating thing. Somebody might come back and say, hey, the cap fee, we can't do $4,500. Then it's a negotiating factor. It's going back and forth, and if you really want that event to come to San Angelo, you may have to work with them and adjust it. If not, you lose all revenue.
So when you do it, do you say this is the rental fee or 10% of?
Normally when it comes across my desk and stuff, I'm trying to get all the details first. Artists, what type of attendance that we're kind of looking at, tickets, ticket sales, what the price of the tickets is, everything that comes with it before we make that decision of how much the cap rate is for the event.
So in the past, if we looked at each one of those events that you've done that with,
yes.
If there was a flat rental fee,
if it would have been a flat rental fee,
ticket sales, the ticket fee.
You're talking about the total gross and stuff?
How would it compare? I mean,
we wouldn't have had the events. There was no way we would have had Beach Boys, ZZ Top, any of those major events without a cap fee on there. So me saying how much we would have made, we wouldn't have made that because that event wouldn't have came. We wouldn't have made merch. We wouldn't have made facility fees. You wouldn't have made concessions. It all boils down to making sure that number is agreeable on both sides to where it works into their budget. Because again, a promoter can walk away and go somewhere else. And that's the worst thing that we want to happen, is saying, hey, let's just let it go and let the amount just run on. Nobody's going to want to do that.
Just because
I understand what he's saying. You have 1750 or you have 10% of gross sales, ticket sales, okay? That in between, the cap is going to fall in between those two. You have to negotiate with the promoter at some point where he feels happy saying, I feel that this is a good amount that I'm going to pay for using your facilities. If you go too high, if you don't have a cap policy in place, well, 1750 and he makes, 200,000, well, then we're on the short end. If we go 10% of gross sales, well, then, yeah, we make a lot of money, but we make a lot of money on somebody that doesn't show up. Nobody's going to come. Nobody's going to pay that. It's standard practice that the civic events manager be able to negotiate some fee that they feel that is where the city makes money and the promoter feels that he's paying a fair price for the facility.
I guess what I'm saying is, you are capping it and putting a limit on how much they're going to pay.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
on the rental. Yes,
Okay.
on the rental. And it's the
Now,
same thing. You do a cap rate with.
If the rental is $100,
We don't have a rental at $100.
no, you don't.
It's
But it's an easy number.
1750 is the rental.
And they sold 100% of the tickets. Okay, I would say that capped amount should be something like 60 or 70% of the tickets sold, or it shouldn't be that even. It needs to be higher than that, because if their amount should be there, but we should, if it's such a sellout event, we need to be able to make that extra and possibly make more than the.
Well, and I think that's what he was saying earlier.
Don't
and I'm not
discount
trying
it more than.
I'm not trying to defend his position, but I think
I know what you're saying,
if the event is going to be a bigger one, the cap usually moves a little bit in
I don't know
our
how to
favor.
word it.
But there's no way. You can't just throw a cap and say we're going to cap at 70% of what he would have made, because the negotiations take place before tickets are sold, if that makes any sense.
That's where we rely on the experience and the expertise of the man that was hired to take care of this.
And if Sid's gone, the next person doesn't have that experience, we don't have
Well,
a
that's kind of
guideline.
why I made that statement earlier, because
We
eventually.
don't have that guideline. There's nothing, not a scale or something to go by. And if you could come up with some sort of scale or something that for the next person, or 20 years from now when you're gone, whatever.
Just
They
go
look
back
at-
and
if
like
they
a
look,
gut
if they look at
feel,
the
like
previous
kinda like-
agreements that I made, though, they
And I
should
don't know
have
if you
enough.
can.
They should have enough information with the previous agreements that I've already made. Same way that I did whenever I walked in and had to do it for monster truck shows and WWE. That wasn't my forte. So I had to do it too as well. So I mean, the information's there. It's just
I don't know.
so.
This is one of those, just like another one we had. I know what I'm thinking, but I
I
don't
know what
how
you're
to put it
saying,
into
but
words.
I mean,
I understand where you-
in this case, the numbers speak for themselves. We exceeded budget 4 months early.
Yeah.
I think he did pretty good negotiating with the promoters.
Car shows. The only thing we did add into the car shows is just per fire code. All vehicles must have less than 5 gallons of gas, and the battery must be disconnected. That's all we added to that, and that's just because whenever we do have concerts and events, we do have. It's not technically that we have car shows, but we have they show off the cars and displays and stuff like that, and we want them to be able to follow the correct policy.
Is that just inside?
Yes.
I mean, maybe spell that out, because I know you have some shows in the parking lots that
Yes.
want to show off their hydraulics and their. You don't want someone reading the policy and fussing about a show outside doing something.
I'll just put all vehicles parked inside
Indoors,
facility.
yeah.
Yeah, indoors.
Somebody will see this and fuss about the rodeo.
Caterer requirement and payments. The only thing we did change out of there, of course, was the same thing we changed out to make it state a fee or a required payment. And then also, we added in private. Under the last sentence, it says lessees may provide their own food at private events. Instead, it used to just say at events, but we wanted to make sure we specified that it was for private events. If neither the preparer of the food is paid any fee nor anyone attending the event is charged for eating the food. Questions?
Chamber of Commerce lunch. It's a private event.
It's a public.
The food is.
It only caters that are approved.
Okay.
What differentiates a private versus a public event? The organization putting it on?
No, a public event is open to everybody to be able to just come in and join. In a private event is most of the time ticketed, or West Texas Rehab when they do the concert. That's a private event.
Actually, anyone could buy a sponsor table.
Yes.
If seats are left over, then they'd sell individual tickets. So it's actually a public event. The private events are more, there's no publicity, there are no tickets sold. It's usually family-oriented.
So, like, and the only reason I'm asking this, does all this apply to Fort Concho as well?
It's all city venues, the catering, yes.
So, because I run into this all the time, you have someone call you, and it's like a delivery, right? And you're just delivering it to Fort Concho. Right. And I don't know where
You're
I'm
not working in the building, setting up or serving. You're just
well,
drop off.
Fort Concho has no kitchen, so that's always the case. Even at like everywhere that's why I always kind of argue a little bit with them, because I don't do any cooking there. I don't do anything going on there at all. So in my mind, it's a delivery. Why am I paying the fee? So in this case, if someone calls us and says, hey, we're doing a quinceañera and they're contracting with me to bring them the food, where does the fee fall? Do I have to pay that fee, or should that be exempt?
If you're just dropping off, that's a delivery. We also have no kitchen at the River Stage, at the Coliseum, the Paseo, and we have caterings there a lot. I mean, Dorothy deals with the same thing. If she's just dropping it off, it's just like ordering pizza.
Yeah.
It's just a drop-off.
And it's always that way when there's no kitchen, but yet we still have to pay the fee. So that's what.
McGowan set up and serves 1,200 people every July for the Concho Valley Electric Co-op.
Yeah.
And they pay 10%, even though there's no kitchen. But they're there where they're working, they're serving the food. If they're just dropping off 500 briskets and then their volunteers or staff are doing it, you don't pay that fee. And you shouldn't have to over there either, or at Pecan Creek or anywhere else.
So what I'm saying, though, is in my mind, a quinceañera is a private or public event?
It's a private event, but if they're paying you, you're catering that event. But if you're just dropping off the food, you should not be paying that 10%. We deal with that all the time here, so if they're telling you that, they are wrong. I know they've changed hands as well in the office, so, and she's learning. I think she's got it down a little bit more pat than the last one.
Okay. Private versus public. All right.
Guess we can go to the concessions. The city's contracted concessionaire, and this was another one just taking the language out of the agreement. The city's contracted concessionaire holds exclusive rights to provide food and non-alcoholic beverages at the Coliseum, Convention Center, River Stage, El Paseo, and Tier Plaza if used for a ticketed event. The contracted concessionaire holds non-exclusive rights to provide food and non-alcoholic beverages at El Paseo's pavilions, grounds, and courtyard, the farmers market pavilions, and the indoor arena if the arena is used for a non-ticketed event. And then this section where I would suggest for us to put in the concessions percentage. I don't know how to explain that part of the concession, the percentage, if Carlo is working with the promoter and stuff, I would suggest to put it under this section right here.
The metrics, I guess, of his contract is what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
I have no idea how to word it, but.
Yeah, for him to negotiate or something like that, I'll probably bounce it off of you or something coming up. I'll send it and see if that terminology works for us all and stuff.
I just think it'd help him if there was something.
It's put in writing as well. So with the next few, of course, we had contract for use of public facilities. I'll go ahead and read it out. Organizations or individuals wishing to, I need to put in book the Convention Center, Coliseum, River Stage, Paseo, Farmers Market, Concrete Pavilion, or Indoor Arena must execute a short-term public facility agreement within 10 business days of the booking inquiry to maintain a hold on the venue. Such contract shall be issued and signed in a printed form that has been approved by the city attorney, and no verbal agreement for the use of the civic events venue shall be binding upon either party, unless he must provide adequate information so the civic events division can determine proper staffing and management of the event. Unless otherwise approved by the civic events manager, such information must be provided no later than 10 working days prior to the event. I would go ahead and, of course, we did speak upon the CVB as well. So we would have just a different section. This wouldn't pertain to them as in that part. But we do give somebody I like to give them the courtesy of 10 business day holds. And personally, sometimes somebody can't make a decision. They don't have a decision in 10 business days. But I do want to keep it open that way if somebody does call us up and they would like to get that date and they did want to book it at the time, well, those 10 days for the prior person has been up for them. Although I don't want to lose the business of somebody that I did hold that 10 business days, but if it does go over and somebody does come forth and say they want to book that date, I would like to be able to book that instead of trying to just keep it on a hold.
No, I think I agree with that. I mean, but I guess whoever's got it on hold, you just call, give them a common courtesy call, and.
Yeah, it's more of what we probably just need to do is just sit down and have a monthly scrub of the calendar of future dates and stuff like that of what we've had on hold and other, because it's not just CVB that has holds. I mean, there's all types of holds in there, and you're working with dates, you're playing with dates with them. And I know for sure Ms. Lori does call and give them contact them. And like if Josh had a booking for a concert that he was thinking that he was going to have here, she'll give him a notice and say, hey, I'm going to have to let go of this date. We have so-and-so coming in that would like to do it. Or she even gives them the common courtesy of saying, hey, would you still like to book this date too as well?
Well, once again, just like I read before, communication is key on this. CVB, Civic Events Talks.
Definitely.
You guys do a scrub on the calendar. I think you'll be okay.
We also, I was going to say back to what Michaela said earlier. We also need to take into account the east mezzanine.
Yes.
And while we're going through. While we're going through a lot of this.
Well, the east mezzanine, like for concessions and stuff, the east, well, yeah, it's not in the contract, yeah.
Where do you
Is the
include
tiered
east mezzanine?
plaza?
On contracts or the fee schedule?
Tiered plaza.
Under concessions there. The tiered plaza? Oh.
The property in between the.
Is this the only place that's mentioned?
Really?
So if that falls under civic events, shouldn't we add that every place else that we have everything listed?
That in the mezzanine, the east mezzanine?
Honestly, that's just consideration for us because of the events we book at the River Stage, because if it's a wedding or something, they call constantly. And when I have short bookings for the museum, it's because they're having something outside, the eco fair, a wedding or whatever. They'll book the River Stage just to block it.
Is that a different fee to rent that? Or you have to rent off the whole river stage? The tiered plaza. Do you guys?
Parks does that. Ida does that just like she treats Kids Kingdom, Unidad Park, City Park. They do that, but we work back and forth constantly on that because there are a lot of weddings, receptions, kids stuff there.
Well, see, I mean, I don't understand if tiered plaza falls under civic events, or if it falls under park and recreation. Do we?
Yeah, I'm lost.
You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
I know the.
Because Carlo has set up alcohol events there. We've had conference or convention. They're actually using the river stage for a picnic or the concert portion, but they have their happy hour or meet and greet outside on that tiered plaza. It has to be insured as well, so he can set up and do liquor. He cannot, I believe, sell individual drinks. It's just treated as a host bar or whatever. But he has to license that strip of property in between. And there are property lines. The river stage is one address, museum is one love, but that tiered plaza still falls under Avenue A address. And I believe that's why that's in our concessions, because of him doing the concessions.
Okay, so if they use the tiered plaza, whether it's on its own or with the river stage, does it go under civic events contract? Like, do we charge for it extra? Do we?
Tiered plaza, no. We only charge them for the use of the river stage.
Okay, so if they're doing their happy hour or whatever in the tiered plaza, do they just get the use of it? Or do they have to go do a contract with the parks department?
I believe he fills that paperwork for the parks, just like he would if he was doing something at City Park. Under a special events permit. It's like a $25 app fee, I think.
So why do you have to even
Deal with it.
deal with it? Carla does events at 1 Love Street at the museum. You don't have to book it.
Well, sometimes if the wedding party is just using that tier and they want the host wine or whatever, he has that licensed piece of property right there to set up. It
Right,
doesn't.
But he can license it under that address. I mean, with the parks
You're asking someone
paperwork.
who knows nothing about
It just
that.
seems like extra work for you. You shouldn't, I mean, if he's got paperwork
Yeah.
with the Parks Department,
They just call as a courtesy to see if we're having something very loud, can they do that? So, and then she will book it for them, reserve.
Okay, so you never have to actually do any kind of contract or anything for
Not
that?
for Tier Plaza, it is not our property.
If we use labor on it, we should get money from it.
Exactly. Agreed.
I'm gonna go back to the east mezzanine. Do we not, does he have exclusive rights to the east mezzanine?
No, he does not. Like for our auditorium, no.
So he has the auditorium, how does he get the,
he doesn't.
I'm
have the
sorry, how
auditorium.
does,
Does he have the auditorium now?
No.
Well,
Anybody can come in and sell in concessions for the auditorium. He doesn't have an exclusive agreement.
so what you're saying, if the east mezzanine is fall under civic events, then Carlos should have the exclusive right to that. That's what I think is.
that's what I would assume.
I don't know if Carlo wants that. No, San Angelo Host wants that.
Well, whether he wants it or not, if East Mezzanine falls under civic events, then his contract falls under the East Mezzanine. Or the East Mezzanine falls in his contract. I don't think he gets to pick and choose. I mean, it's all or none.
Because east mezzanine was really never in play until now.
Correct, it wasn't. When he renegotiated his last it did not exist. We could rent it for meetings, mostly city. I did have a few outside meetings, but they were daytime meetings. It just came online, and the agreement between the SAPAC group and the city, they're allowing them to have other providers in there since it's not included in what he's got insured or anything else where his license would fall. So it's pretty open right now.
So the city allows SAPAC to have access to the east mezzanine?
the city allows SAPAC to allow other people to provide service. We rent the East Mezzanine to SAPAC. They have a contract for certain days. They
There's
pay
something in
us.
it.
I've already
Gotcha.
received 3
Okay,
checks
I
from
gotcha.
them. Yep.
Any more questions on that? Convention Center kitchen, we didn't make any changes with that part of the policy. If you all want to bring something up about it.
I just want to ask, when we get on back here on other facilities, we have that whole paragraph about they shouldn't have tacks or nails and et cetera in the walls and like back here under I know this is farther than the end, but like under River Stage and Paseo, there's a paragraph that each one of them has about basically you shouldn't be nailing stuff to the wall. Shouldn't we have that on the Convention Center and Coliseum also? Okay. But it's not in here. That's why I'm asking. If it's going to be in each. Okay. So I just noticed it while I was reading through it. I mean, not a big deal, but if it's going to be on some facilities, it should be on all of them. Just kind of a admin type thing.
Following that is the damage cleaning costs. We didn't do any changes to that as well. If you all would like to read through it and.
Real quick on damage cleaning costs, lessees may be responsible for returning.
You want me to change it to
Probably
will?
should be shall. Lessee shall be. I mean, you can't make some people and not others, so.
Maybe.
Just protect y'all.
I got you. Of course, like I explained earlier, we took out deposit schedule and changed that over to booking schedule. So that's why that's all highlighted out. Under donations versus ticketed events, any monetary amount suggested or required for entrance or admission into an event shall be considered a ticketed event, which is subject to a rental rate of 10% of gross ticket sales. If admission to an event consists of donations only, the base rental for the facility will apply. And what we took out was, or in the case of the Coliseum, the base rental plus utilities, because we're trying to get away from separating our charges of just charging somebody for usage of the AC and stuff like that. Emergencies, pretty simple. Civic event staff will be available or on call at all times during the event. Certified peace officers will be on the premises if required, and then it goes down to C security. Equipment, we did take out the equipment because we're not for leasing out equipment or furniture or things that are needed. Now there is a for SAPAC. We do have an agreement, I guess, to be able to help them out. If we have those needs available and stuff, we'll let them use, you know, certain things. If they call for the riser for the symphony or something like that, we do have that. But there's whenever we do get to the fee schedule, because there should be charges on all that, we need to come up with having it on our civic events fee schedule to be charging for the rental of those items.
Go ahead.
I'll say, are we setting those up too? That's labor hours to include.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you're going to have it on the fee schedule, because I had a note here, shouldn't we have it that we should not loan or let anybody borrow any civic events facility for any reason unless approved by somebody higher than you, just so you're not put in that position of, oh, come on, let me borrow this. So if we put it on a fee schedule, they have to pay for it if they take it? Because I know that's.
I would prefer for them to pay for it if they're going to take it. That's just me. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't like to be in the middle of, you know, them asking me if they can use it for free or something like that.
We borrow your lift.
Exactly.
I mean.
Yes.
So if we put on the fee, that would cover it, right? Okay.
That takes out equipment. So we can go into facility discounts. Now, hold on. I do remember probably a year and a half back, Susanna came up here and we added 2 more tiers to the facility discounts, which included the facility discount proposal was 150 room nights for a discount of a third, 100 room nights for a discount of a fourth. Is for the convention center and the Coliseum only. New conventions, conferences, or business meetings. It is a 3-year limit, and groups verified through CVB for room blocks. And this applies only to the rental of the facility. So what I did add was the 100, because they already had the 200 in there. So I did add the 150 and the 100 in there as well. To it. So it reads, if they provide documented proof within 10 working days from the end of their event, either through themselves or, I should say, or the Convention and Visitors Bureau, that an average of 150 San Angelo hotel rooms were booked and used during the course of the event, 33% of the security fee or the fee will be refunded to the organizer promoter as part of the event settlement agreement. And that one again, of course, again, for the average of 100 San Angelo hotel rooms were booked and used during the course of the event, 25% of the fee.
So the documented proof, I know it says something in here about such as a hotel sign-in sheet, the industry standard, there is no industry standard hotel sign-in sheet. So
The part where it says we can utilize a hotel industry standard such as a hotel sign-in sheet to occasionally spot check the final hotel number submitted to our department.
I just,
How should that be worded? How should that be?
I just want it more verifiable. I mean, anybody can come up and say, oh, yeah, this is my list of 200 hotels.
Yeah. And how could we?
I would suggest they have to provide it with the stipulation that if somebody wanted to go back, like at CVB, because CVB asks for a pickup after any big event that they've dealt with, and for this, they have to be part of the equation. So the organization, I would think, should prove or show their 200 room nights plus, but it should come pretty close to matching what the CVB gets as a pickup too. Now, I'm not exactly sure how we would word that, but that's my idea.
I'll work with Ms. Baines on it, and we'll discuss that and how they're ready for the next meeting.
But
Let's just
there
sit
is
back and-
not a industry standard, anything like that. It's always difficult. Some sports directors putting on tournaments will go quiz their team, the teams that are attending, and try and get an idea, and they can get names that, I mean, leave it on, it needs to be put on them. They're the ones getting the discount.
The burden of proof must fall on the person getting the discount.
Okay. We'll definitely discuss that and take that.
That's a tough one, though.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's always been hard to quantify that, isn't it?
Any other things with the facility discounts? Moving on to facility use fees. There's a lot of changing and interchanging on this. Of course, I can't change the, what I do need to change on here is instead of having it states in nonprofit organizations will pay a facility use fee of 50 cents tickets or 25 cents if they qualify as a multiple date user. I probably should just put it as nonprofits will pay a facility use fee according to the fee schedule. Take out all that type of language in there. The other thing is a facility fee of $1.50 ticket is charged on all tickets sold with a face value of more than $5. The Coliseum, the Convention Center, the River Stage, and the Paseo, taking out the auditorium. The fee is 75 cents per ticket for multiple date users. And a lot of this, I would just prefer that it just goes, again, to the fee schedule. Everything should be according to what the fee schedule is.
Basically going to $1.50 across the board. Is that correct?
Well, no, I couldn't change it in here. Once we get to the fee schedule, then we can discuss that portion of it. That's why I had to go back and
Okay.
put it the way it's supposed to be.
So I just have a question. On that fee schedule, so if you have somebody selling a ticket for $10, or then you have one of these big events that the ticket's $50, will that fee schedule address, I mean, are we going to charge the same $1.50 for anything over 5 versus, or is that something we'll discuss on the fee schedule?
Something that I would like to discuss in the fee schedule, but I would like to move forward and go across the board for $1.50, no matter what the event is, just because that's a customer is actually paying that ticket cost, and if we're giving a discount, then we're giving a discount to their customer as well and all that. I just prefer that we go $1.50 across the board, and I do suggest that we go up from our face value of more than $10 instead of keeping it at $5. A lot of tickets aren't. I think $10 is where we should be at for asking for a facility fee. Because if somebody has $1.50 is with the way the tickets are now, people purchasing online, we have to really take in consideration of how much fees on top of that they're paying on top of their tickets and stuff like that, because that can make a customer not want to come to an event or whatever. The service fees and facility fees and all those charges too as well.
What you wanted to read, a facility fee of $1.50 per ticket is charged on all tickets sold with a face value of more than $10.
Yes.
That's what you wanted to say. Okay.
What I would like to do is come back and just look at.
So the gun show will raise their ticket price? Is that where you were going with it?
Yes, sir.
Basically.
$9.99. All right. So what are we looking at to change on facility use fee? Is there anything that we need to address differently? I would like to clean out, like I said, all the numbers and just make people they would have to look at the fee schedule, not just put it in our policy.
I just think if they're charging $50 a ticket, we should make more money than the people charging $10.
As in, you're talking about as in our facility fee and stuff, or as in what the fee is? I understand what you're, yeah.
We should get more.
Just do a sliding scale. Tickets from this price to this price.
That's going to be totally technical, because we got to understand how technology moves. So people want to purchase their tickets online. So if they purchase their tickets online, they're already getting a charge from the service fees from that. Then we put on top our facility fees. Man, you can look at $7, $8 just on the event. And people do talk about that portion of the ticket. People will drive just so they don't have to pay a service fee, and just buy the ticket at the door or at the gate. I mean, people come to the Coliseum all the time and say, hey, we just didn't want to purchase the ticket online because the service fees were too high. I don't know how to. Some people look at the services as, it's good. Some people don't like having any type of extra fees on top of their ticket except for the base price. Question? Oh, that's right. Glass containers is just per city ordinance. We didn't change anything on there too as well. Glass containers are prohibited in civic event facilities per city ordinance with the exception of wine glasses, wine bottles, and punch bowls in the convention center.
About that, just for clarification, because we have groups come in, they may have a caterer that want water glasses, they may have a banquet, they have something else. I just want to make sure that doesn't exclude, those kinds of things, because this is very specific about what kind of glassware. And I know that's kind of a silly thing, but
Well, I think the glass containers is probably in there because of a safety issue. You don't want beer bottles and things like that getting thrown around, and, you know.
I'm just talking about for banquets, so that's where my concern is.
Okay. What are you saying, Lori?
It's not referring to place settings, part of place settings. The caterer, several of the decorators, they provide and rent wine glasses, champagne glasses. Those are allowed. It's mainly bottles that can be chunked or torpedoed.
Okay, so
So we can add a phrase in there excluding place settings or dinnerware.
I don't know how you want to reword it. I mean, but if you want to get down
That's the
to
way I
that.
read it too, is the way that Diane just did.
When people ask, and I tell, it's not your kitchenware, it's not your place settings, it's the alcohol bottles.
But it
Coke
needs to say
bottles.
that,
Mhm.
so. No, but if you want to do glass and china, don't you want it in here where it doesn't say you can't?
Tea glasses, juice glasses. Dinnerware, place settings. Yeah. So are you going to change that add exclusion of place settings?
Indoor arena. We did just X out all of that information because we do not do the working of the dirt at the indoor arena. So we took that out of the policy where
Indoor
employees,
arenas
civic
re-
event employees will groom the indoor arena's dirt floor.
So basically indoor arenas rented as is?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Insurance, I went through risk management office with Mr. Charles Hagan. This is what he's I've followed up on that. That's what it's supposed to state in our insurance for the policy. Mike. Following that, going to the internal use policy, we did update, and I believe that I did give you all a copy of, or I sent it on the email. If you do not have it, I do have a copy here too as well, if you all were able to read through
Who
it.
does that policy?
City manager did.
City management.
I'm going to go back to my comment from months back of paying indirect cost directly back to the city, but yet we're allowing them to use our facilities for free, utilizing our staff, our time, our electricity, but yet we're paying them indirect cost. So my feeling is we reduce indirect cost or they start paying rent. That's my opinion.
So since this is from 2009 and was signed by Harold Dominguez, couldn't we request a new updated policy? I mean, is there a way for us to do that since we're relying on it?
Yes.
That was quite a bit ago.
Future agenda item?
Future agenda items.
Internal use policy. Will do.
I mean, it's just money from one pocket to another, but it still gives us credit.
It's our budget.
I guess the way I'm approaching it is we're paying indirect costs for use of legal fee for legal services, management services. We're paying the city, the general fund, we're paying them for their services, but yet they're using our services for free.
So we're using hotel occupancy tax dollars to pay for legal services.
Correct.
And they're not paying.
Correct.
Or we're using hotel occupancy tax dollars for the city to have their United Way luncheon here.
Correct.
So, which doesn't put a head in a bed at all.
It doesn't fall
I'd
under.
like to nominate Steve to handle it.
Moving on to multiple use, and we'll stop at multiple use. Or so with the multiple use, one second. A client contracting for a minimum of 4 concerts at one time at the River Stage Convention Center or Coliseum within a calendar year. January through December will be deemed a multiple user. A rental rate of 50% off of the facility's rental rate will be applied to the 4th concert. The 4th concert must be held at either the River Stage or the Coliseum. That was an addition that was actually put into into the actual policy. And the reason why why I believe that should be in there is there's a lot of promoters that we deal with that are on the edge of just having that 3rd or 4th show. And that's an extra event for us. If you just look at just the rental rate, you're still getting the merch, you're still getting facility use fees, you're still getting concessions. And, with having many of the promoters this year, they were on that edge of that 3rd and that 4th. So it's really just incentivizing them to be able to come and bring that last event to us for the year to help us, with our budget. If you can get, let's say the promoters that we had this year, if we can get each one of them to give us another concert, that's an extra 4 concerts, or extra 3 concerts or whatever. So why not incentivize them and for them to be able to come back here and use our facility when we know we're going to just build the budget on, build revenue with concessions and everything else too as well. I wouldn't.
Okay.
Because two is easy. In a year, yeah.
Or just within a 12-month period.
Yeah, just within a 12-month period.
Instead of saying
the January to December and stuff, put it in a 12-month period. That's fine.
Okay, so does this multiple use go for other things besides concerts?
As in?
I will use.
And the only reason I did this again was because we get concessions and everything else. I didn't do it because of just a regular rental. Then we're not getting anything in exchange for it.
Say Shannon Hospital wants to have 4 different banquets here. Does multiple use go towards their rental rate because they had 4?
No, ma'am.
Who are some of those companies, Career Works or whatever, they put on
job fairs? Or
not job fairs, but they're more of a seminar, how to get along with people, how to do this and that. We used to have some of those here. I know they go to Abilene a lot now. Career Works or DIY. Probably, yeah, something like that too. Yeah, some of those.
I think what we're trying.
But they would be a multi-use person deal too, and you've got it in here as 10, I think, 10 meetings.
Well, that's only for the small meeting rooms, though.
Yeah.
Had several. The only one that is a repeat monthly that gets that discount is Sunoco, which they just changed hands. They're Energy Tech or something now, but
Yeah, that's private though, right? But that would still
it's a
apply.
safety meeting. But yes, where you're going with that?
Some of those put on seminars on, how to.
Yeah,
Use Lotus
Esperanza
or,
Clinic used to meet
Excel
here monthly
or-
as well with different things. They received that. And referring back to Shannon, because of their new facility, they have the larger conference rooms now. I don't know,
what I
but they
grabbed.
quit with the banquets. So many people have dropped all of those events. We do not get Verizon events, Sitel events anymore. They're just doing away with all the employee happy happenings, kind of like the city, you know. We have a luncheon every now and then, but if we're lucky.
We'll give a discount to the city.
I think when we discussed this, I think what we're trying to accomplish was this, is that if you look back at our budget last year and what we made, concerts was, and promotions was one of our big revenue generators, okay? And so I think what we're trying to do here is if there's somebody who's bringing in these big concerts, which are large revenue generators, is cutting a little bit of a break at the end, because they'll do 2 or 3 and then they're like, okay, we're kind of done with San Angelo, and this is our incentives to bring them and say, hey, do one more show. And if they do one more show, yeah, we give up some money on the facility fee, but we make money on the money on concessions and on merchandise. Okay, I'm sorry.
On the rental, we lose money on the rental, not on the facility fee. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah. You're right. On the rental, we still make money on the facility fee, but we make money on merchandise and that. The only thing that we need to protect ourselves on is for a promoter to come in here, do 3 little B shows, and then come back here, do a big show and want 50% off. I don't know how you protect yourself against that, but that's to me, the flaw in the policy.
Yes.
That makes sense?
I mean, for me personally, I would see it as, I understand where you're coming from, but then again, you got to look at the concerts that happen. So some people would have thought Lee Greenwood would have sold out. Some people didn't. I mean, how would you want to base that off of? If with a guarantee of 1,000 tickets sold.
No, I understand the difficulty of wording that in a way where it protects us, but that's the
Yes.
back door in this particular thing. You know, yeah, being able to get one more big concert by being able to give them a discount on the rental rate of the facility, you know.
And then I do want to say, if going back to the facility use fee, of course, that's council mandated. So that definitely has to go forward whenever we move about changing for tickets and stuff too as well, for nonprofits, I'm sorry.
Can you define concert?
In the definitions?
I'm just,
I
mean,
do
anyone
want to,
can come in and
that was
say,
another thing. Yes, we were supposed to change that. That's right. So it should be public ticketed events or something like that instead. Because I don't want to just do concerts, because a promoter could come in here and bring Price is Right, and then the next time bring Family Feud, and then he wants to do a concert, and then that's the 4th event that he has. I mean, he didn't brought us 3 ticketed events. I would like for that promoter to be able to. So I will change the language in that, instead of it saying concerts, say something towards it's a ticketed event or something like that. Public ticketed event. That's right.
I'm saying anything could be a concert with music.
Are we stopping here, or are we going to keep moving?
Well, we're going to stop.
Why?
Got to go to the bathroom.
We are on a roll. Now, now this is the thing, we're kind of a little bit I mean, I guess we don't have to be, but if we try to get it in to council, we've got probably another couple of policy committee meetings, and then we'll do the second half. So what I'd like for you to do is everything that we've talked about today, as quickly as you can, send an email out to the board, okay? Review it. If there's something that you don't like, reply back, so that we don't have to rehash what we've gone through. But if he makes his changes and for some reason it's not what you understood, go ahead and make the changes, and CC everybody in the email, so that we can move forward with the ends moving forward. Does that make sense?
Amen.
Okay. Let's get it on an email. Everything that we talked about today, send it out to the board. The board, if for some reason say, well, I thought we were going to do this versus this.
And remember, we can't have a discussion.
We cannot have, that is correct. He can send it out for information, and we
Can I
can.
just send it to the committee and then?
Okay. I'm sorry?
Could I just send it to the policy committee?
Well, I'm not on the committee. I'd like to see it.
No.
I think you allow everybody to make their changes, and all of their changes go to the committee.
That is, yeah, that's a good point. You can send everything out, and then individually send it to the committee so that we can discuss it and make sure that it's sort of the agreement. However, we still have to communicate so that we can get it back, so we're not going back to square one in the next meeting, because that'll happen.
Who's all on the committee? Billy?
Steve, myself and Don,
The left side.
and Sydney. So if we can do that fairly quickly, let them make their changes, send it to us, we can bring it forward. Let's get that passed out of the way so that next meeting, we just do the second half.
Yeah, and the second half
Second half should
definitely
be
is
pretty easy.
yeah, it's pretty easy. Of course, we'll go through ticketing and stuff too as well. A lot of the language that's stated into our facility policies with ticketing is definitely changing. So we'll be taking care of that on our next one, on our next board meeting, as well as our ticketing agreement will be terminated by then too as well. I can get you a copy of the fee schedule if you need it. I'll just send you the email. I'll send it to you. As in, what, the fee schedule? Yes, fee schedule is totally different. So after we do policies, then we'll go into that portion. Future agenda items. Well, I know
Maybe
y'all
a couple.
stated.
Well-
Yeah, I know y'all stated an amount of them too as well. Of course, we'll be doing the civic events policy next meeting. Update on the HVAC and chiller as well to be discussed, and then I'm hoping by the next meeting, the period 13 will be over with too as well. Haven't gotten an official answer if all the books are closed and stuff for 17, but I'll want to at least just be able to go through the venues, and maybe it might not be at the next board meeting since we'll be doing policies, but I would like to be able to go through all the revenue and expenses for all our venues and just see where we were in 2017 and compare it to where we were previous years and see what we can do to further
Right,
get
that's
events
one of
and
the things
other
we discussed, that we
things.
go back 4 years and present year to year overall on how we did our numbers. Another thing that I want to address I was going to address earlier when we were doing policies, but she brought up a good point. When you're doing your concerts in the upcoming year, you know, working with CVB, I think, is crucial because a lot of times we're targeting San Angelo and maybe the surrounding area, and if CVB can be a little bit more involved, maybe we can get people from a little bit further, or we can increase our circle of attendees, and maybe we can get there and get more hotel rooms to come and attend, and of course that benefits everybody, CVB, and of course the hot tax.
Maybe just more communication and working together, and
That's what I'm alluding to. You know, because this is the thing, you're doing a great job bringing these bands in. Let's get with CVB and say, okay, how many more people can you bring me in? How many hotels can this event host or do? You know what I mean? And see. If
No,
we can get
I've been absent from the last ones, of course, because we've been having our policy meetings at the same time. We've been doing policy meetings, every Thursday we've met, had lunch, so, oh, no.
Anyways, all right. So when we talked about consideration of future agenda items,
the policy memorandum, did you get that one down?
Yeah, the internal use policy and stuff, we would like to, and if we have city management here at the next, if that's what we're requesting for city management, somebody from the city management office be present at our next board meeting, I think we can probably discuss a lot of those issues as well as the internal use policy too as well, and see where we can go. I may be able to get an answer before then and see if we can get something updated or done too, so.
yeah, and legal.
And legal, yes.
Well, I want to thank everybody for staying so long. I mean, I knew it's going to be a long meeting. Hopefully the next one won't be as long, but it's something we got to get through, so I think we made headway. And with that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second. All in favor? Meeting is done. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy.